The meeting will then officially be called. Please stand as Trustee Bobby Blunt leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
We'll do the prayer first. Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we're assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Mr. Blunt. This regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is authorized in accordance with the Texas Government Code Sections 551.001 through 551.146. Meeting's called to order. The first item of business is a public hearing, School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. I think that's you, Mr. Rastellini?
That is me, thank you. Ms. Chumley, members of the board, this evening we are presenting the first public hearing as required. Just as a reminder, this was established with the 76th legislature in 1999. This marks the 16th year that school districts are under reporting requirement. The purpose, or under first, there's 4 objectives. One is to assess the quality of financial management. The second is to provide transparency. Is to identify the maximum allocation of resources to ensure that they're for instructional purposes, and to implement a system that is fairly and equitably across all. The next reporting requirements do require that the report is published. We do have reports available for public consumption. It is all, this report is posted on the district's website. We have posted notice as required in the San Antonio Express on October 3rd and 10th, meeting those requirements, and this evening we are conducting the public hearing to discuss the rating of the school district. In addition to the report that's issued by TEA, the report should also contain additional disclosures which include the Superintendent's Employment Act schedule of reimbursements received by the Superintendent and the Board of Trustees, schedule of any outside compensation and gifts received and other business transactions to which this board in the 16 years none have occurred. The report itself, or the rating itself, is based on 15 indicators. There's actually 16. One of the indicators has a Part A and Part B. The district did pass all 5 of the pass-fail indicators and scored 96 out of 100 points in the remaining indicators. The rating for the district, this is the 2017, albeit this is the 2018 report. It's based on last year's financial data. Gives the district an A or a superior rating. At this time, that concludes my presentation for the report, and the administration recommends public hearing as requested.
All right. Do any trustees have any questions? All right. The next item of business on the agenda is this superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley and members of the board, just a few items to report. I'll say that for and since our state convention in late September, we've worked to address several items that are part of the Northside priorities that will actually come tonight to the board for approval. And those could include kind of broad categories like accountability, charter school expansion, and of course funding of Texas's public schools. Interestingly, in the last several months, I've had the opportunity to meet with the lieutenant governor a couple of times, with the governor's staff, to talk about some of these issues, certainly to include funding, but also school security, and of course tax relief, which is certainly on the mind of the leadership in Austin. I'll say that I was really pleased, and I know I wasn't the only one on the dais there, that that day to attend a San Chamber event that honored outgoing Speaker of the House, Joe Strauss, who of course is from San Antonio. The speaker had an opportunity, of course, to give some remarks, and just did in his normal statesman-like way a fantastic job out where he sees the state needs to go. And I'll say that I think of the maybe 15 or 18 minutes that he spoke that day, I bet a full third of his remarks were dedicated to public education and the need to properly fund public ed in our state. And while we are all sad at the leadership in the Texas House, I know he will continue to be an ally for us as we go forward. Had an opportunity to attend 2 or 3 national night out events, of course, all on the same evening, and really always enjoy that great community events. And I want to particularly thank Mary Roberts, who's the PTA president at Jay and the Science Engineering Academy. They put on an event that is really unparalleled, I think, in just about any neighborhood. I mean, it is absolutely hugely attended. People come out who maybe had kids at Jay decades ago and come out to see what the current kids there are doing. Really just a really nice event. So thanks to Mary and to Jay Principal Jay Sumter and Science and Engineering Academy Principal Teresa Coyar for just a great evening. I want to thank a couple of members of this board. The audience, as an article was written the next day, that we, along with our neighbor to the east, the superintendent and the GR staff and a couple of trustees, in our case, Mrs. Chumley and Mrs. Reed, went and had a conversation with the editorial board, a very open, I thought, and frank conversation about financial impacts of charter school expansion in specifically in San Antonio and Bexar County. I thought the group from the Express listened and really feel like the article that was published the next day reflected that listening nature. Naomi and I have a meeting with the city coming up very soon on that same topic, and I'm hoping we can continue to generate interest locally in that topic, both with the public at large and certainly our elected officials. So thanks to y'all for attending that. Congratulations to all 11 of our high school marching bands in spite of the rain a couple of weekends ago. And I'm not sure how they did it because it literally rained on and off every day. Every by I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have to cancel the contest. But in spite of the rain, all 11 of our bands performed and earned either a superior or an excellent rating. And many of those move on this coming weekend, to the area contest. So last is a video, and I think our video tonight highlights a young man, a Northside student, who's really fighting through some adversity. Monica.
My job is to make sure the ball gets to the quarterback nice and safe, and also protect up front of the line.
And John Jay Sr., Maximiliano Vicuña, does his job on the football field well.
He has things that there's no measuring stick for. You only see him. You know, when we go talk about effort, attitude, and toughness, those are things that we all have control over, and those are things he controls very well.
Max is starting center for Jay. He's been playing football since he was 5 years old. But the summer before his 6th grade year, things changed.
I just felt a sharp pain in the morning when I woke up. I couldn't move. I was screaming, crying. Well, they just did a lot of tests on me. I was waiting around in the bed, just waiting for something to come in. And then all these doctors come in. You know, I was kind of scared. I thought something was wrong with me.
Max was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. It's a rare autoimmune disease that affects 50,000 children in the U.S. For Max, it affects his feet.
A little aches and pains, a little burns. And when I'm running for a while, I start getting like this pulsing feeling. When I'm squatting, it's just like a numbness.
Which means he hurts most of the time he's on the field.
It's really hard. It's to a point where I just start waddling around a little bit.
And while his teammates know his story, they wouldn't be able to tell by his performance.
He's not a complainer. He's never missed practice. He's one of those kids that he gets through it.
And he works through that pain because of his team.
I wouldn't just throw my team away. I wouldn't just leave them alone just to not play. So my brothers, I look at them like my second family. When things go wrong at home, I know that over here I could talk to them about it. They always have my back when I'm looking down. My brothers come and try to cheer me up.
Mac's a kid that you want to hope influences other kids, and that's what he does. He does a good job influencing others.
That's a look at what's going on around Northside. Thanks for joining us for this video from Northside Media Productions. Northside is San Antonio's premier school district of choice.
Couple of comments on that. One is, yeah, what a great kid. We talk a lot about grit and perseverance and how we try to build that in our young people and in our adults for that matter, because we believe that gritty adults build gritty kids. But here's a kid who's displaying that. Y'all like that? I'm pretty sure that's not actually a word, but I use it on a regular basis. So, here's a kid who really displays that every single day. But the other thing I think is amazing in this, beyond just his kind of personal perseverance, his evidence of perseverance, is his rationale for that perseverance, right? It's to be a part of a team. It's to be a part of something that's bigger than myself. And that to me is one of the things that public school offers that you really get every place, right? This opportunity to be with other folks, to do something bigger than myself. And whether that was football or orchestra or, auto tech, it's a great opportunity for this young man. And you can see the kind of adult he will become, and eventually, probably, the amazing kids he himself will raise, partly because of this experience. So great illustration. Thanks, Stud TV, for that.
Prognosis is really good.
Yeah, I think so. But he will persevere through that for the rest of his life. Yeah. So, thanks, Ms. Chumley. That concludes Superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Next item of business is the board members report. Do I have any trustees? Ms. Reed.
I'm probably going to mention some things that some of the rest of you might want to mention also, but last month I actually forgot to mention one of the things that I had done, and that was I had been requested to come talk to our museum association about sort of the history of the school board here in Northside. And it was interesting going there because since I've been on the board so long, I really knew a lot of those people because they've retired since I've been here. And Mr. Rawlinson is actually the one who asked me to come and do that. It was an interesting presentation. I actually went back to before we were a school district, and when there was just one Bexar County school superintendent and a whole bunch of little schools out here, and gave them quite a history, even though they knew a lot of it, but they didn't know that part of it. So it was a fun thing for me to do, and they really enjoyed hearing about what was going on in Northside, and I gave them a little bit of a look at the future also. I wanted to mention, last month you all mentioned that I was receiving an award from the Women's Chamber, and I really was kind of, I just had heard about it. I want to thank Carol and Karen, I think, are the ones that wrote the application for me, and appreciate, I don't know who else was involved, so thanks so much, and I hope that some of you will come to the event. I actually received something from the chamber that said they need to have the names of the people at the tables by the end of the week. So if you're planning on coming, please either call me or call Linda and let them know. And I would encourage you to come. It's out at Valero, which is, it'll feel like you're going back to an F banquet because they're going to have an auction and then they're going to have the dinner. And but it's at least convenient for all of us. You don't have to go downtown and find a parking place. I actually brought today with me a folder that's from UTSA, and it talks about their plan for the future, and it's here, so anybody that would like to look at it, because they have some really big plans of what they're going to do, not only just building, but so far as their all the different colleges that they have there as well. So, and did want to mention the Joe Strauss luncheon that the chamber had. That was really a great event, and I was so pleased that he talked as much as he did about education. And since that time, I've actually seen something where his whole focus was about education. So he's not done. He may have retired as the speaker, but I think he's going to be involved in the future, and that's all good to know. The meeting with the editorial board was very interesting. There were some writers there, and we certainly did not anticipate that we would have a front page story the next morning, which was kind of a big surprise for us because we had requested an editorial. And then he also offered us the opportunity to do a, lost the word, on the editorial page.
Like an op-ed.
An op-ed piece, and so I'm assuming that you're going to be working on that.
That's coming up, not from me, but from
Okay.
well-placed source, yes.
Well, and I think most of you know that I serve on the ACOG board, Alamo Area Council of Governments, which is a 13-county regional board, which is mostly all county judges and city mayors, et cetera, and one school board member who represents all those school districts, and that would be me. So every year they give out awards, and I encourage Northside to make some applications, and they haven't taken the full vote. It will happen tomorrow morning, but I think one of our applications has been approved, so we will be receiving that award in December, early in December. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Ms. Freeman.
So a lot of things have been sitting here thinking, it's only been a month, but a lot of things have happened. I think Dr. Woods mentioned our high school bands and their incredible performance last week. But, you know, some of the unsung heroes in our high school bands are our booster club members. The booster clubs have parents that work extremely hard to get, we have volunteers, as you know, all over this school district, PTA and in our schools and all kinds of events. But I did want to recognize the booster clubs of those high school bands this evening and thank them for what they do, because truly those bands would not be able to move from, you know, most of our schools have 3, some have 4 band directors, and you might be moving 300 students, and so they need more help than just those 4 band directors, and those booster organizations work very hard. So thank you for that. The TASB convention has happened since our last board meeting, and one of the most exciting events, as you all know, in Northside. I don't know that you could be here without knowing that Dr. Woods was recognized as Superintendent of the Year. And Dr. Woods, we were all watching you on stage. I know that must have been very interesting as you stood up there waiting for somebody's name to be called. Well, it was equally as nervous for, at least I was, sitting in my seat waiting for, thinking about how I was going to look happy that whoever was chosen. And, so we're very pleased, we're proud, and you know, it's not always that we're recognized or anybody is recognized for all the good that they do and exceptional leadership, but certainly it's well deserved, and we thank you for all you do, and glad that you're here with us, and so congratulations on that. Another, some of you may know, I sit on the TASB board, and I thank my board for the opportunity to be able to do that. Next year, the board officers assign the rest of the directors to committees, and I'm going to be able to serve on the the legislative committee next year. It's not the first time I've done that, but it's exciting to be on that committee during a legislative session. I wanted to remind everybody, too, that the TASB Legislative Conference is being held on February 26th, and that's a meeting held in Austin where trustees and superintendents and school people are invited to come. Conversation takes place, and then afterwards, everyone is encouraged to, prior to that, make appointments at the Capitol and then go see your elected officials and talk to them about what's going on in your district and how legislation may impact your personal school district. And one other thing we did find out in the board meeting, we had heard in my committee that our educational commissioner, Mike Morath, is considering adding a governance distinction to district report cards next year as part of the state accountability system. And there's certainly more to come
I wonder what that means.
about that. It's interesting from my personal opinion. I think the community does a really good job of measuring our governance, and they either vote us in or they vote us out. And I think the community does a good job. I'm not sure how TEA intends to measure governance, but stay tuned.
That's interesting.
So thank you,
I
Ms.
wonder if we
Chumley.
can do the same thing. Dr. Harrell.
Thank you. Katie, thank you for thanking us, but I think everyone in the room would agree that you have given 28 years to Northside. It's the least anyone can do. And I are reflected board members' comments about your work and your contributions to Northside. So that is a well-deserved honor. So it'll be a great celebration, and of course, the celebration on the 15th for, just every time one of us or one of, 4 of our teachers just got major awards too, you are Northside's family. So time someone gets awarded, it's shared by the entire district, but to have major awards, and I keep remembering that the Christmas Story, the major award, we need to give you a leg lamp with a light because it's a major award, but these are major awards. So thank you, and Karen representing us at the legislative level. I mean, we need funding for all kinds of things, but we do really want to make sure that we're always taking good care of all our kids. I do want to give a shout out. Where's Barry? Barry and Julianne did a great Ed chat on Twitter the other night. It was about telling the stories. I don't know how many followers we had, but there were some great ideas, So, if we can capture that. So I don't know if you can print them out, if they collect under an electronic folder, but sharing them with the board, they were fantastic. And again, I love our Twitter followers and our Twitterers in Northside because they share the best practices and they share their kids with the world, and they do a great job telling the stories. And there's all kinds of ways they tell stories. It's just that my favorite way right now is through Twitter. So the other thing I do want to say is this time last year, we were starting work. There were 18 of us on the long-range planning steering committee for the State Board of Education to advise public ed for the next 13 years. 13's an odd number of years, but that was the task that was given to the State Board of Education. The plan was finished and it's going to be voted upon, and then it'll be handed to the legislators. And so as soon as it gets voted upon, I'm allowed to send it to there. But whether it will impact a lot, it does give great data and great rationale for the way monies could be spent. Which I think sometimes people need to say, yes, you need more money. So what does the research say? What's going on statewide? So these 18 members represented the state of Texas, and let's see, my phone just went dead. But the 4 areas that had strategies and activities that required funding and legislative attention were centered around equity and access in Texas, actually the need for it and what that could look like in districts throughout Texas, student engagement and empowerment, family engagement and empowerment, and then preparation, recruitment, and retention. So there was a lot of wisdom and research in this, and I can't wait for the rest of the world to see it, so to speak. But at the same time, it's a really good blueprint, solid data and recommendations. And then just a shout out really quick, we had some great winners for the bilingual it was Region 20 World Language Conference, and we had 3 of the winners. We had the Bilingual Teacher of the Year, Catherine Bolanos from Cole Elementary School, the Administrator of the Year, I love Lou Medina from Stinson Middle School, and then ESL Teacher of the Year was Kristen Bunches from Patton F. Middle School. Just incredible educators, but they're one of, how many thousand do we have? 13,000?
Teachers or
Yeah,
staff?
teachers, staff. Well,
7,000 teachers?
7,000 teachers, but then with administrators and everybody else about, yeah.
14,000.
So, anyway, then, happy Halloween.
Thank you. Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. As well, I wanted to piggyback with Dr. Woods regarding John Jay and the Science and Engineering Academy 3rd Annual National Night Out. It was a tremendous success because they tied it into an open house, and not only were staff there, Mr. Sumter, Ms. Cuellar did a great job. And it was pretty awesome because it was now run and emceed by students, student organizations, and so not only did parents, siblings get to see not only the programs that are being offered, but also get to see their siblings, be out there and market their product, what they're doing in their programs. Also, regarding the marching band competition, it was a tremendous success, and I'll also piggyback with Ms. Freeman regarding the band boosters and those band roadies, the parents that are out there. Tremendous success. I can't imagine they're operating without that parent support, and it was really awesome. I think I was taking more pictures of those that were out there, the parents, they're volunteering and helping their children be successful. Also, congratulations, Dr. Woods, on your achievement being a superintendent of all superintendents in the state of Texas, a leader for all leaders, also not only just for Northside students, but for that 5.4 million students. Lastly, just a shout out, Northside's bowling program season's kicking off next, their kickoff date is November 6th, and it is operating and running and full steam. It should be a great season, so hopefully we'll see some familiar faces out there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blunt.
I still focus on Dr. Harrell's Halloween comment over there. But just be a little bit repetitive, I do want to say congratulations myself on behalf of Trustee Reed. Definitely well deserved and very pleased. And with Dr. Woods, I know we're going to celebrate more, but it's just interesting when I encounter other trustees across the state when they say, well, we're so glad our superintendent won. I look at them, what do you mean our? No, it's Northside superintendent. Anyway. And just to pass on to the board, we're having a big Go Public meeting tomorrow. Yep. So our advocacy continues without a doubt. We're up to 18 districts now in the San Antonio area that are part of the Go Public campaign. And tomorrow we'll have about, I think it's about 80 or 90 folks so far that have signed up as of last day. So it's going to be interesting to have the board members, the superintendents, and the PIOs. Our annual meeting is going to be tremendous. There's going to be some, I can't give it away now, some new announcements that really going to take a big step forward for Go Public and really go back to our early intentions of what we really want to achieve out of the Go Public. So y'all have to come back next month to hear about it, but board members, you'll hear about it tomorrow, also the superintendent.
We have to sign up.
No, you're good. We'll cover you. I'll get you something to eat, but no, you don't have to sign up in advance. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what everybody else has said. Congratulations, Dr. Wood, on the Superintendent of the Year. You deserve it. Yes, and you are our superintendent, so I've got to remind everybody of that. Also, congratulations to you, Katie, and that award. It is well deserved. 28 years is a lot. Dedication, public service, true public service. So thank you very much for doing what you do. And I'm,
Education is important.
yes,
While I'm here.
exactly. Well, and thank you very much for that. I did want to comment a little bit on kind of what I've been doing, as everybody has talked about what they've done and things like that. In our recent, at the TASB convention, I was appointed, or I was actually selected as one of 36 candidates to be on the leadership TASB. And what that is, it's a bunch of it's 36 trustees around the state of Texas, and they get together and they work on issues and they talk about issues that are within the district. Some of us have common interests, and some of them are a little, we're a little off, but we're different. But it doesn't mean anything that we're bad or good. It's just saying that we all have differences. So we've learned, we've talked, and we're going around the state and we're learning about what each district is about. And we're going to be going to Amarillo, I believe, in November, so that's my next session. And then I'll be going down to the south. So we are going around and we're seeing a different district each time, but it's really interesting. And so we're learning a lot, and we're learning to understand the needs of students. So just wanted to, I'll keep you posted on that in my next report, or in January, I think, or coming up in our next school board meeting. So, but just to let you know the things that I've learned on that. And I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. So what I'd like to do is ask what students are here tonight. Joseph, I'm sorry. Was there anything else?
I actually didn't
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, I think Mr. Marvin's class
Oh,
is
okay.
out. They're
All right.
waiting.
Oh, right here. Hi.
Hi. All right, well, we'll catch the students when back in. I saw him. We're glad to have you with us. And who are you with? But what class are you in? What?
I am a junior, and I'm with Paradise High School.
Oh, well, great. Well, we're glad to have you with us. So I just have a couple of things. If y'all haven't had an opportunity, I went to Holmes High School, their theater arts program, had a small melodrama dinner theater. And it was so much fun. I actually went 3 nights. And they were so much fun. And the first night, the kids really had they weren't exactly what they were doing, and there was lots of ad-libbing because they couldn't remember their roles. But by the end of it, by Friday, they were absolutely kicking. They were wonderful. I have not laughed that hard or had that much fun with a bunch of kids. It was just great. And so if you have an opportunity to do that, I really recommend you go. It was in the LGI room, so it was kind of a small group, but it was wonderful. Lots of audience participation. So my mentee was one of the actors. And so whenever she came out, she had this long name, Chiquita Banana, on it. And so you'd go, hubba, hubba, whenever she'd come out. And then whenever the other kids, like the railroad guys, everybody would whistle like a railroad. I mean, it was so much fun. So I just want to do a shout out to Kurt Logan and Annie Bridges. Kurt is an O'Connor High School graduate, and he is now a theater arts teacher at Holmes. And Annie Bridges was a student at Holmes High School, and she is now a theater arts teacher at Holmes. So they just did a wonderful job. The kids were absolutely amazing. Brian, I wanted to thank you, and Katie, and I want to thank the Express News editorial board. Whenever you go to a newspaper and you meet with the editorial board, I find it kind of stressful because you never know exactly what they're going to take away from it, really going to understand, and the issues that we were addressing have a real impact on ISDs, and the carrying these 2 financial systems of public ed is kind of a hard, it's hard to explain, to really all of the implications to not only us as ISDs, but to us as taxpayers. And I thought they did an amazing job. They asked really important questions and really worked hard to understand what we were trying to get across. So I really thank the editorial board. I thought the newspaper article was wonderful to have that, and for Katie and Brian and our partners in Northeast as well. I just think it was a really great action for us to take. I went to UTSA College Night last night, and I was amazed. There are colleges from all over the United States. I was just thinking it was going to be local Bexar County and some of the, Texas schools, but there are schools from all regions in the U.S. It was amazing. Huge amount of kids. I think like 4,000 students. So shout out to Kim Ridgely. The counselors really did an amazing job with that. So I'm going to get on my soapbox for just 1 minute since we have a really good group here tonight, and I know y'all all care about public education. And I want to ask you to please go vote. You know, we always talk about the problems that we're having with education. We don't have the support, yet we fail to vote. Or we fail to look at the record in relation to education of the people that we are voting for. It's extremely important right now. Public education, and I'm talking about public ISDs, are under siege. And there was a time in Texas when teachers were a voice, and they were a voice to be reckoned with because they went to the ballot box and they voted. And legislators were scared of them because of that. We have that power. Those of us that love and support public ISDs have that power, but we don't get out and vote. So just please make sure that you look at the voting record of the people that are running and what they're really talking about when they talk about public education. So, and then I'll get off my box. So thank you all very much. Katie, I think surprised that there's going to be a large percent of us, and I want to thank Karen and Carol as well for the nomination. I think there were lots of thoughts from all of us on that, but I think you'll be surprised that there'll be a lot of us there to cheer you on. Thank you. All right, so the next item of business on the agenda is recognitions. Dr. Woods. And if the board would all join us in front.
Wait, I need to get the ball game off my computer real quick. I need to get the ball game off my computer. 1-0 Red Sox. Bottom of the first.
I think either Red Sox and I know I should know.
Dodgers.
Yeah, listen, once the Astros were out,
All right. It is my pleasure tonight to recognize Mr. David Rastolini, Deputy Superintendent for Business and Finance, as well as the other leaders in our business and finance area. For the 26th year in a row, Northside has received the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. It is awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended August 31, 2017. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by the government and its management. An award of financial reporting achievement is presented to Mr. Rastolini, our Deputy Superintendent for Business and Finance, as the individual primarily responsible for preparing the award-winning CAFR, and I know David would say that all of his staff deserve recognition. We all know what a challenge it is with limited resources, as Ms. Chumley just pointed out, and assistance coming out of Austin, to maintain a balanced budget and to streamline the financial integrity of an organization, especially one as large as I know that we present this award to David and his team each year, but it's well earned each year. Money and his team assure that taxpayer money is spent wisely, ethically, and for the benefit of all of our students. It is because of this leadership from David and Wes and the entire business and finance group that we have continued our award for 2.5 decades. I want to take the time to salute the Business and Finance Department for receiving this special designation yet one more time. Please come forward and be recognized by the board.
Did you think you'd get away with us not saying something about you, Brian?
oh.
I know you would. You were, and you were very humble. And I just, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we just want to tell you how very excited we are about this recognition. So it was really interesting. And there's one word, and I can't remember it, and I could say the wrong word, so I'm not going to say it. But there's lots of words that kids use to talk about Dr. Woods when they are introducing him. And the one I really liked is the time when a student said that you are the most interesting man in Northside. Like the beer commercial. But we just want to tell you how very excited we are for this recognition for you. And you have always been very gracious about saying that that recognition is to all of Northside. But we truly are a governance team of 8. And I think that that makes us different because we really want and value your input in your direction. And I think that that makes it special, that we really do truly have a governance team of 8. And we're just so very, very grateful for everything that you do. And we are just very honored that you're being recognized this way. So for November 12th is when we're going to have the official recognition and meet and greet for Dr. Woods. But for right now, what we want to present to you, oh, and I have to tell the story real quick. So we all were just pins and needles. Karen was right. We were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because we knew who was the best superintendent. And so when he won, well, I'm starting to call the reporters because I'm like, we got to get this out. And so, and Brian's like, no. And I said, you got to call this reporter. She needs, some remarks from you, which of course he calls her the next morning, not that night. About 6:30. But there was a wonderful article in the newspaper about you. And so we want to present this to you to just tell you how very special you are to us.
Ms. Chumley, Dr. Woods, trustees, my name is Ray Galindo. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Administration, and it is my pleasure to recognize the members of the 2017-18 Northside Leadership Academy class. For the past 42 years, in an effort to identify and train future leaders, held specialized training in one form or another. Beginning in 2013, the Northside Leadership Academy, or NLA, was established from what some of you may remember was the AIM program. NLA is a year-long program that focuses on the core competencies as they apply to school or department leadership. The admittance process into the program is a rigorous one. Along with the regular paper application, participants are now required to complete a problem-solving exercise as well as undergo an interview. At this time, I'd like to recognize the fifth graduating class of the Northside Academy. Each graduate will receive a certificate of completion, like this one. Because they're heavy, she's the only one that has one. The remaining certificates, yes, you'll be asked to follow Ms. Mr. Tobias in the back, and they will present you with your certificate. As I said, with us tonight, we have both the traditional aspiring leaders that hope to someday be campus leaders, along with individuals who work at different departments and are department leaders. As they come up, I will identify who they are, obviously, and either the school or they work with. So congratulations to all of you, and we'll begin with Ms. Alanis, Tanya Alanis, from Folks Middle School. Gabriel Best from Leticia Chapa from Ross Middle School. Joel Castillo from Garcia Middle School. Kimberly Contreras Tamas from Harris. Joshua Copeland from Marshall High School. Araceli Farias from Jay High School. Siobhan Galindo from Carlos Kuhn Elementary. Gina Gutierrez from Jefferson Middle School. Jennifer Hilbrick from Colonies North Elementary. Matthew Jenke from O'Connor High School. Alana Lucendon Jones from Jones Middle School. I'm sorry. Brooke Millard from Midelis Elementary. Kimberly from Garcia Middle School. Roxanne Olvera from John Glenn Elementary. Jennifer Schroyer from Holmes High School. Tyler Smur from Pease Middle School. Barbara from Carnahan Elementary. Gerald Winter from O'Connor High School. Rebecca Zamora Barraza from Meade. And Ruth Caldwell from the Excel Academy. And again, if you will, you can head out to get your certificates. Thank you. Next, I'd like to begin with our department. And we have Catherine Callahan from from Middle School C&I. Jamie Ford from the Continuous Improvement Department. Kristen Johnson Monteano from C&I Elementary. Danielle Leon, C&I K through 12. Katie Martinez from Partnerships. Carrie Moy from Middle School C&I.
Way to go, Danielle.
Monica Perez from HR. Esperanza Budget. Kristen Solis from Spec Ed. Loislel Tejeda from Middle School. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Loisel, thank you. Tracy Ware from Internal Audit. And Tracy Savala from the Purchasing Department. I'd like to recognize anyone who may have their family here as well. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Leroy San Miguel, our Assistant Superintendent for Facilities and Operations, for the next set of recognitions. Leroy?
Thank you, Ray. You cleared out the room. Ms. Chumley and Dr. Woods, it's my pleasure to recognize those members who have served on the 2014 Bond Advisory Committee and who are leaving us because we have substantially completed the 2014 program. These individuals represent the community at large to provide transparency and serve in the advisory role to the board and the superintendent. As you may know, we meet several times during the course of the year and we talk about all kinds of projects or topics that should include status of projects, construction costs, and yes, some challenges that present us from time to time. Their hours of work, input, and expertise are invaluable to us to make sure that the district continues to spend bond monies ethically in the best interest of our taxpayers and, of course, our children. As a token of our appreciation, we have a little wooden plaque we gave some to the members in our last meeting, which I'm holding. Plaque is a wooden plank that comes from one of our high schools. And it's a part of a gym floor and has the engraving that basically says 2014 CBAC member, thanks for building our future. With that, at this time, I will ask each member to come forward for the recognition. Don't be shy. Come on, Kathy. Ms. Kathy Nizer. Ms. Phyllis McMillan. Ms. Angela Barino Den. Mr. Chip Conklin, that pinch hit every once in a while as the chairman of the committee and kept us all going straight and narrow. And a stranger, Mr. Randy Fields. And another stranger, Mr. Andy Green. And finally, Mr. Jordan, which you may know from Harlan High School.
Hi there, sir.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
So before we sit down, I think I'll ask Ms. Freeman to come forward and make one last recognition.
Unless my fellow trustees have any objection, I would like to exercise a point of personal privilege this evening and recognize someone that is here with us this evening. Okay. Dr. Woods and fellow board members, it's my pleasure tonight to recognize one of our colleagues who recently completed the Leadership TASB study. Leadership TASB was begun in 1993 as a way to offer advanced leadership training to experienced board members and is nationally recognized as the premier leadership program sponsored by the Texas Association of School Boards. Upon successful completion of the course of study, the recognition of Master Trustee is bestowed. Over a 10-month period, the class meets times in 5 different Texas cities. They hear from nationally recognized speakers, tour a variety of school districts, just as Gerald described earlier, and conduct personal research on a topic of relevance to Texas school trustees. Class members represent districts from all parts of Texas. Leadership TASB asks participants to work a little harder and renew their commitment to make a difference on behalf of school children across the state of Texas. Trustee Dr. Carol Harrell joins the ranks of more than 700 LTASB alumni and to present her this evening with a certificate as a member of the Leadership TASB Alumni Association.
Hey, Carol, let me get a pic. There you go. Ready? Ready? 1, 2. Got it. Yes, very nice.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to get.
And you, I'm not gonna. Okay, so now can we find out who our students are that are here? So you, part of, these are all. Oh,
Yeah, but most of us here are from Robert Marvitt's government class at North Community College.
well, great. Well, good. We appreciate that you always bring them to our board meetings. And
Graduates from Northside?
all right. Hey, that's wonderful.
One of your prior award recipients came from this class 10 years ago. Rebecca, she had just scooted out to the side.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, we're really glad to have you here, and we have a young man from Brandeis with us as well. So, welcome. Are you?
Are you working on a badge? No. Badge? No. Well, I knew he was
Well, good. Well, we're glad to have you here. Thank you.
And thanks for dressing up so nice. All of y'all. Very nice.
Okay, so the next item of business on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone trustees want anything pulled? All right, can I have a motion come forward, please? Ms.
I would say
That's right.
that there are a number of items on the consent agenda that are from, that the building committee has looked at in depth. So for those of you who look at the agenda and think we don't know, we're not talking about some of these things that we have. And so with that in mind, I would recommend approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Next item of business on the agenda is the citizens to be heard. I think we have 2 citizens that wanted to speak this evening. So I need to read some rules. We believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although we are restrained by law from taking any action. Please use the podium, address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to a policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the board secretary, Mr. Lopez, will hold up the yellow card. At 3 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the red card. We ask that you wrap up your remarks at that time. That doesn't mean you just have to stop mid-sentence, but if you'll just come to, we'd appreciate it. And audience, we ask that you please refrain from applause or any negative response. Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Wanda Longoria.
Esteemed President and members of the board and Dr. Woods, one guess why I'm here. The recognitions continue. But before a letter from the executive board members, I'd like to invite you all to a viewing of a compelling film that describes the impact of corporate reform measures and efforts to privatize public school. Backpack Full of Cash will be the screening will take place on November the 5th at 6:30 at the Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church on the west side of San Antonio. One viewing has already been shown at the Carver Cultural Center. Approximately 100 people showed up for that. And there was a lot of discussion because after the film there is a panel discussion where the audience can ask questions and get answers.
And what time?
6:30.
6:30.
The 5th.
Once more, the location?
Our Lady of Guadalupe. That is in the far west side, I believe. Yes. Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church, West Side, SA. Yes, there's another one. That's right. That's right. There is.
Yeah.
We can talk about it.
Several organizations are working together to bring that screening to San Antonio.
We wanted to see that at TASB.
So if you have other members, other people that you can share that with, we would greatly appreciate it. I'm going for a second viewing just to take in more of that information. You know, sometimes you need to do it a couple of times. There is, and we can share that. Dear Dr. Woods, on behalf of Northside American Federation of Teachers, we'd like to extend our sincerest congratulations on much-deserved honor of Superintendent of the Year. Each day we are more and more impressed with your commitment, your dedication, and support for our students, for their families and employees in the Northside District. Even more impressive is the fact that our district is the 4th largest in the state of Texas, and it continues to grow at such a rapid pace. Currently, 608,000 people are living in 210 square household or 355 square miles. We're so proud to have you as the leader of our school district, a model of excellence and the destination district in the state of Texas. Even with the incredible growth in this district, you continue your commitment to community service, family-friendly neighborhood schools, character education, literacy program, fine arts programs, sports and physical fitness, and a myriad of other beneficial programs that not only provide an excellent education to our students, but also help create happy, healthy, and successful citizens of our community. You consistently advocate for public schools in our district and state and encourage active participation of Northside constituency to do the same. Congratulations to you, and thank you for the incredible job you continue to do every day. It is a position of the utmost and is crucial for the children, families, and citizens of our community. All of us at Northside AFT hope to continue to collaborate with you on many more events and projects in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda.
Next person is Elijah Rowell. Sorry.
Good evening. School Board, Dr. Woods. I'm Elijah Ruff, And today I would like to address the dress code and how it is not being adaptive to Texas climate. I am a student at Brandeis High School where the administration upholds the current rules and regulations and will continue to do so. However, they are in full support of me attempting to change the rules with your approval. As I've noticed in grades 3 through 5, they are allowed to wear shorts in strict guidelines. I think we can all agree that the reason that they are allowed to wear shorts is because of the hot Texas climate. I can assure you that the Texas heat is no less hot at Brandeis High School. But really, it is very uncomfortable to wear long jeans and pants in 90 to 100 degree weather. High school life can be more active than elementary school life. This can lead to a safety issue which can lead to overheating and fainting for some students. I can understand that there are some reservations for older kids in wearing shorts during school. What I am asking the board tonight is to establish a committee to study the possibility for changing in rules and to allow grades 12 to wear shorts. This committee could address all the issues and concerns that the school board may have about changing the policy on shorts. They can also develop the strict guidelines for the students on what is appropriate attire at school. School should be a place of comfort and safety where students can focus on their school and not the heat. I once again ask the board to please establish a committee to update the rules that recognize the climate in South Texas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No more.
Let me just explain, because this issue isn't on the agenda, we can't have a discourse with it. That's why on Citizens to be Heard, it's really something where we really can just listen. But we have heard what you say, and we'll, I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that when we have it on an agenda item where we're free to speak to it. Thank you.
And did your father make it in the room?
Yes, yes. Thank you for coming with them. All right, the next item of business on the agenda is the curriculum instruction. Dr. Jordan.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, President Chumbley, Dr. Wood, Board of Trustees. This evening, I'll be presenting an update to the process to date that's leading us to the completion of our new district strategic plan. First, we're working to build what we're calling strategic design framework, and the framework is what the plan will be based on. We've been working since last spring, so our task has been focused on building this framework to help the Northside experience going forward is as successful as it's been in the past. So what are the components of a strategic design framework? There are 5 of them. You see those 5 here. The first is a learner profile, which really outlines the characteristics and behaviors that we want all of our learners to have. The second is a framework, and that's basically the commitments that we make to families and to students about the quality of instruction they'll have in their classroom. Mission, and we're very familiar with. A mission outlines what we do every day to try to reach our vision, which is an aspirational goal. And then we'll round out with core beliefs and brand. Core beliefs are different than beliefs in that they're very focused, they're held at the organization level, and they're understood by all. Something that's probably different on this list than in times past might be the idea of a brand. We are having those conversations about what sets Northside apart from any other institution, and how can we tell that storytelling way? Because there's much that we know about Northside. We want to make sure that everyone understands it as well as we do. So this next slide really shows some of the big pieces of our journey that we've done since last spring. I had mentioned that work began then, so you'll notice we started with a steering committee, and this committee had principals and people from different departments, and we spent a few months
reviewing the current strategic plan, reviewing best practices, research. We did a book study and looked at some articles as well. And then we spent a lot of time thinking, how do we get as much broad-based as possible? So in May, we sent out a survey to over 12,000 stakeholders. And so again, that included parents, community leaders, business leaders, educators, which I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. Then we brought together a committee of over 75 folks. Several board members participated in this two-day experience. So again, we had parents, business leaders, students, educators. And so we spent the 2 days using the results of those surveys with all of the research from the steering committee, and we began crafting those 5 components of the framework. We had a day in September where we brought back that work that was in very rough form, and we continued to massage it and come to consensus. So we're going to be presenting a little bit of that work to you tonight. Then, of course, here tonight we're presenting our update to you for further direction. So I'd mentioned talk a little bit more about the survey. So this survey, again, went out to over 12,000 folks, and it asked 5 questions. The first question was, what are your highest hopes for learners in Northside? When our students graduate, what is your biggest dreams for them? And that was actually an open-ended question. The second question was, what are the vital skills that you believe our students need when they graduate to be successful? What behaviors should they display on a regular basis? What types of learning experiences should students be having in the classroom and in our schools to help prep them for the future? And then the final question was, what ideas do you have that are really good assessment ideas? You know, how can we assess how our students are doing that are beyond the standardized test? So we had a lot of information from that survey. So when we brought the group together, that survey data was a really big piece of their analysis. And then we wanted to spend some time with that committee and set the stage about Northside, because one of the things we said was, our goal is to create this framework so we can be as successful in the future as Northside has been in the past. So we took a look at some changes over time, and as you see on this slide, you know, in 1949 we had 823 students. In 2018 we have a little 105,000 students. You look at the numbers of schools in 1949, then now you see all the numbers of buildings. And then some of the accolades you see in 2018, many of those didn't even exist back then. Talked about the tremendous change and tremendous success that Northside has had and has sustained throughout all of those decades. But then we spent quite a while talking about, you know, things, and we hear it, you know, the landscape of education is changing, the economy is changing, technology is changing, and all that is true. And what we talked about was, you know, things change, but in Northside, some things never go out of style. So we talked about these pieces that in Northside, it's personal. That part of the culture of Northside is that we are a family-friendly environment. We care about people. We take care of our people. We're very large, the 4th largest district in the state, but it still feels very intimate because that's something part of Northside's culture. Every student, every employee counts and is valued. We continued about the non-negotiables in Northside, that we educate every child, we value every family, no matter what their need is, of their intellectual ability or any services that we need. And we have high expectations for all. We talked a bit about our belief that will not change, that students are more than test scores, and teachers are more than yours. So we talked about that we believe that we're growing and fostering human beings who are going out into the world to be good citizens and to continue to build our community. And so because of that, we need to ensure our students are healthy, that they're safe, challenged, supported, and engaged in their learning. So we unpacked what that meant. We even took that and compared it to the pillars of character, and even looked at some actual pillars who have won in the past and how they have contributed. Then this last piece, Dr. Woods said at convocation, and it really sums up, when we say some things will never change, this is one. In Northside, zip code not determine the quality of a teacher, the quality of a school, and the quality of instruction for our students. And so those are our commitments. So before our teams got started, not only the new information from the survey, they heard loudly and clearly the culture of Northside that will stay. So once we had those conversations, we were ready to really roll our sleeves up and get to work on the first component of the strategic framework, and that is of the profile. So a learner profile is basically a list of the most characteristics that we believe learners need to be successful. So you see there, I know it's kind of dark in the pictures, we had quite a few folks. They worked in small groups and larger groups to give feedback to one another. In addition to working in teams, we looked at a whole variety of resources. And this is an example of one. It's preparing 21st century students for a global society. We actually did a study of this research, and it how the 4 C's, and if you switch to the next slide, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity that is resounding from business and industry, from higher education, that every child, every student, every learner, really every adult be very well versed in these skills. So to sum up the process and kind of the big, if you were to take maybe a 10,000 foot level, we first surveyed and got a lot of feedback. While that was happening, we were doing research through a whole host of reading and book studies and looking at what the district had done in the past, looking at examples from other business and industry. We brought the committee together, and that was the one that had over 75 business and industry, community members, teachers, etc. And those groups worked on June 19th and 20th and on September 18th. And so this is what they, so you notice we've got draft there, but this right here you see is the draft of our profile. And it's always interesting, to look and see it in table form. That represents hundreds of, or more than that, of people's input and continuing to come back together, find consensus. So if you see here, the will of the committee at this point is that our NISD learners will be, and as you can see, they will be creators, they will be collaborators, communicators, critical thinkers, leaders, learners, and innovators. The one you see about problem solvers, solution finders, there were some people only wanted problem solvers, some people wanted solution finders. So at this point, it's still drafty. We have them there together for continued discussion. There's one thing I want to note about this. The committee had a lot of thought and discussion about how do you word the attributes.
Because when you look other profiles of the learner, they instead of creators, they might say creative. So they use adjectives instead of nouns. Our committee really liked using even this verb here, that they are the noun, they are creators. They felt like it was action piece as opposed to a passive piece. Then we've continued our conversation about core beliefs, and some of that conversation has really been around differentiating between a core belief and a belief. In our study, in our review, and we looked at a whole host of them, what we noticed was there are some districts and some organizations that have 2 or 3 pages of beliefs. And they're all really good. When you begin unpacking them, which we actually did this as part of our process, you see redundancy, you see a lot of specific detail, but you typically see some big ideas that kind of flow to the top. So our work with core beliefs is we began with a large number of beliefs. And through study and finding out which ones that aligned with the organization, that winnowed down at this point. So if you take a look again at we're drafting, you'll see core beliefs draft. One more. There you go. These are the 5 that the committee right now is bringing forward. And so the thought from the committee, again, small groups, larger groups coming to consensus, was if we had beliefs that had deep meaning and a powerful way of saying it, perhaps we could have that be something that people could easily remember. So you see the draft here. So what are our next steps?
Wait, go back, please. Okay, thank you.
So you've heard me say again, draft, 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 and that's exactly where we are. And so our next steps is, as we're moving through this framework, is the learner profile and belief statements getting final form. To do that, we're going to need to reconvene the committee, and we're going to be, then after that part, we'll work on the mission and vision. And the idea is that we continue to turn to you, Board of Trustees, for any direction that you have for us. So as it moves from, the initial draft to the next draft to final, we ensure that it is aligned with the direction that it needs to go.
Let me ask, I need to ask the rest of the trustees because I'm not remembering it. The current mission statement we have, did that come from strategic plan?
It did.
Did it? I just remember lots of wordsmithing on that. So it must have been when it came to the board that we did a lot of wordsmithing on it. That's something that's a little different on this, Janice, is that trustees had input along throughout the whole process. But I do remember us doing a lot of wordsmithing on the mission statement. So thank you for, I know it's a draft. Thank you for emphasizing that. But
yes.
So as Janet,
on that.
Was there, Gerald was there, I was there. So
Not the whole time.
Not the whole time, you're right. I was there for 2 of them. 2, I was there for 2, you were there.
I think I was there for 1.
So.
our thought was to, because not everybody was able to be, at every session, and that would always be the case. That's, y'all are busy people. That's, I wasn't able to be at every minute of every session. That we would bring you kind of this draft, and because we realize this is the first time you're seeing it in this format, what we would do is just kind of give you a present tonight so that you have a sense, and then come back in November and come back to slide 16 and to slide 20 on profile and beliefs, core beliefs, and see if there's feedback that you want to give us. Give you a little time to look at it. We didn't think it was reasonable for you to see a president just off the top of your head. So we'll come back to you in 3 weeks is our plan, and seek some additional feedback at that time, if that works for you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, just one question, because I wasn't able to participate in the earlier sessions or meetings that was held. Did we look back at 2013 and 18 to discuss that, sort of the lessons learned from how we, our vision, mission, and beliefs?
Yes, sir, we did.
Part of it? Okay, that's what I need. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez?
You know, I just wanted to make a comment. You know, Janice, when I attended the event or this session, it was really well run. So, and what I enjoyed it the most was one at the table that I was at. I had one of the students that had just graduated from Brandeis, I believe. Yeah, from Brandeis. And I mean, and this was a really smart student, and she was really giving a lot of good input, and a lot of it, you know, I remember her talking about, this is what I see, and she really had a lot of passion about the district and what she would like to see as a student in her upcoming, you know, graduates of Northside. So a lot of this is really great, and so I was fortunate enough to be there that day to hear a lot of the discussions, and I could see the passion that a lot of the our collaborators had, even from our outside partners. So it was really good discussions, and I enjoyed it. So great job on that. Thank you very much for including us, and I will try to be as more involved as I can in the next coming up, you know, rounds.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, just a couple of comments. Was there a reason why in the past the strategic plans, and Bobby, don't feel bad, I didn't make any of them either on it. It was, I think we had like 250 people. So was there a reason why we scaled down the number? I'm sure there was, but I'd just like to know what the thinking was behind that.
Yes, when we analyzed process, so Mr. Blunt's question about did we look back at 2008 and 2013, and we did. And we talked with internal staff, many who had participated in those large meetings. And the feedback that we got was they appreciated being part of the process, but they also felt we had opportunities to streamline it, because what happened when the groups were so large and they met so many times, you've got people working on different parts of the plan, and so it keeps getting tweaked and changed, and they said sometimes at the end result it may or may not reflect the original intent. So when we talked about really what is the main reason to have 250 people? And well, the main reason is you want to have broad-based input. You want to make sure you have a lot of input from different sectors. You want to hear people's voice, all of those kinds of things. So a lot of our discussion in our steering committee was, how can we maximize the voice, the teacher voice, the principal voice, the business leader voice, et cetera. So I agree with you, Ms. Chumbley. It was very important to us. This is not a strategic plan for a department. This is not a strategic plan for a few people. This is a strategic plan for our entire system leading into the future. We also tapped into some existing structures, such as the Northside Education NEIC, Instructional Council or Improvement Council, and those are elected and appointed members, although I think we had one or two of them on our actual committee, but we actually got feedback from them last year at NEIC meetings. So we looked at, in addition to the survey, we looked at news to get feedback from folks. And so our idea is because we've got this broad-based committee of, I think it's about 80 people, but that group of 80
is using feedback from many, many more. I mean, their exact feedback that they're working from. So we felt confident that, that we were reaching out and getting that voice.
Was it a fairly balanced group, or was it primarily staff?
It was June 19th and 20th, it was like a third, and a third, or a fourth, and a fourth,
So that's how you set up the committee, is that you had each area was represented.
Yes.
Within the committee.
Now, we had a couple, well, and really kind of the way we started was we looked at our Citizens Bond Committee, and we looked back at who previously had participated in the district strategic plan. And of course, you start seeing some of the same folks, and we ensured those were invited to participate, so we could connect to what had been done before and keep that longevity, you know, since they have that experience. We also, it was real helpful. It was a learning experience for me, but, you know, sat down with Cassandra and just to find out, you know, what business and industry, you know, where in higher ed do we need, you know, do we need the voice around the table? So yes, we had really nice representation.
I think the other thing was more of a practical concern. Remember, we had just gone through the Citizens Bond Advisory, and we had pulled a really large group for a number of weeks. So there was also that practical issue about, are we going to do that again to some of the same folks? Literally weeks after we had finished the Citizens Bond process.
Well, and, you know, and I would think in the strategic design process too, so I'm really glad that you did the survey, because the one thing is that, and I know that Dr. Woods and I have talked about it, a concern that you know, you see that group, that core group that has worked really hard in our district and been part of our volunteer group, and as they start to, and I'm going to say it because I'm one of them, as they start to age out, you know, that it's really important, particularly in a strategic design process, that we have, you know, the Josephs of the world that are coming up, that have young have young kids in school, you know, millennials that have a different perception of what they may want in their public schools than I may have now. I know my perception was different when I was a parent with little kids in school. So I hope we had a good mix.
We did.
Of that.
We did,
as
and
well.
you know,
You had some millennial parents too, and I think the one comment, because Kim was on there.
Oh, good.
That she made was there were so many champions of public ed. So you had Ryan from Excel Beyond the Bell. You had HEB, you had Chamber, Lisa from the Chamber. You had the business folks who all know each other because of their passion around public ed, which was really cool. That they were in the same room at least for most of the time, those 2 days, but that several of them, going back to your passing of the torch, they were that age that they have kids that are, you know, they're making decisions as parents about education too, on the public ed side, which was nice.
That's great. That's great. And just one other, I've gone completely blank now of what it was that I wanted to ask you, but it sounds like it was a good process. I know when we did the very first one, and I was a young parent then before I got on the board, and I actually served. So we had the big committee, and then we broke down into different committees, and I actually chaired with a staff member on school safety. Actually, it was a really interesting process. So I'm glad that we had a lot of new young adults that were able to participate in it.
We got really good feedback from them.
Oh, I know what it was. Now I remember. I'd like to see the results of the survey.
Sure.
So if you don't mind, if you could,
I can do it.
you know, send
Photographs
that
and
in
slides
Friday
and-
letter, or, you know.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see what the survey
Yeah, there's some clear patterns there.
said. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Freeman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, when we were talking about the process and the mix of people that were there, the session, the day that I was there, several tables, and perhaps the process was different, different sessions, but we were mixed. So not all the students were together at one table, and not all the trustees were together at one table, or different. We had a diverse group at the table, so it made for good discussion. So we had small group discussion and then large group discussion to bring everything together, and I thought that was very helpful. And I know in the strategic plans that I have been involved with, very, very early on in this school district, when we started strategic plan, like I think you said, I was in one room and that's all we talked about was fees. We did not share information together. That was somebody else took that to a smaller group, and we got to listen, but it was very difficult for all of us to interact. And I thought that was important in this particular session because we were all able to talk about different things.
That's great. So we'll study it, and then we'll come back in a month.
Sounds good.
ma'am.
3 weeks from tonight.
All right, that sounds great. And Dr. Jordan, I think you have the first reading of policy EHDC.
So new rules from the state board require that the Board of Trustees approve an audit process for credit by exams. TEA has advised that districts who use Texas Tech or University of Texas do not need to create an audit process, but instead need to pass a resolution that they approve of the audit processes that the universities have in place. So we have reviewed the audit processes for Texas Tech and Texas. They go beyond the standard that TEA has set. Therefore, our request is for your approval on the resolution that will get us in compliance with this new rule.
And this is first reading, so we'll actually on it at our next board meeting.
Right, we'll circle back because even though it's an exhibit and not the policy, we thought it would be prudent to treat it like we do other local policies.
Dr. Harrell.
And just real quick, Dr. Jordan did share this at academic committee, so we were able to ask a few more questions, but I think you just answered them.
And it's pretty much
nice summary, very straightforward.
What we've been, I mean, this is what we've been
I
using
think we were asking
anyway.
questions like about how many students take an opportunity to do credit by exam, some things more about the process than about the resolution.
How many do?
You know what? Right when you said that, Dr. Harrell, I'm thinking, actually, it's not a huge number,
It's a
not as
small
large as what you would think. Of course, some content areas more than others, but and it's a pretty high standard to pass. These exams are difficult.
Okay. Do any other trustees have any questions? If not, next item of business, the first reading of policy EHBC.
Yes, ma'am. We're putting forward for first reading modifications to EC Local. What that policy does is it outlines special programs and compensatory accelerated services. Currently, there are 13 at-risk criteria that are identified in legal policy, and those at-risk criteria mean that students who have them, you can use compensatory funds for them. We are wanting to modify this policy and add dyslexia as an at-risk indicator. Many districts have done it, and it is allowable to do, but the boards must approve adding that. Our desire is to continue to use state compensatory funds for our dyslexic students, which is right in line with how those funds need to be used.
So explain on this, I'm sorry. Do any have any questions? Dr. Jordan, were you finished?
Yes.
Yes. Seeing none, I just have one. So on this, it says the district has historically funded dyslexia through state compensatory education. So in the past, we were able to do this with us, but now new requirements are such that you have to have us sign off on the approval of it. But we've been doing this in the past. So this is really pretty much just a funding issue?
Actually, ironically, this came out through the special education comprehensive plan that TEA, that we're having to do now, 8.5% cap. And although dyslexia is not part of special education, through their creation of this plan of what folks need to do, they stepped in and they said, okay, because all districts use state comp for dyslexia. That's what is, so this is something that they said you really need to have it in your policy. So yes, this is something new.
So a student can be considered at risk with dyslexia, but not be considered special ed?
Correct.
Okay, because I think dyslexia, don't we address it under 504 right now?
We do, but 504 is outside of special education as well. So
Right, so-
you might have students who are dyslexic, but then also have, a special ed. So some have multiple, but we have plenty of students who are just dyslexic and being served under 504. And we've been state comp funds, which has been perfectly fine. But now with this new corrective action plan,
you have to have this approval, but there's
It's purely a funding issue.
completely.
It's a
there's
compliance issue.
No ripple effect, no change. It's not something that is going to concern parents about any type of.
We're going to continue to use the same dollars we have been using to serve those kids. Yeah, so there's really
no
from a
change
student
on it.
and parent perspective, there's no change at all.
Okay. All right. So we'll have this come back for action next month.
yes, ma'am.
All right. Next item of business is facilities and operations. Mr. Sam Miguel.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. We've got several items for you today, presentations for schematic design. The first one is for a agricultural facility upgrade at O'Connor, and with us today is Mr. Paulson and John Ritteman. They're going to give us a riveting presentation.
But brief.
The pressure. President Chumley, Dr. Woods, members of the board, senior staff and guests. I'm here to present the agricultural facility upgrades for O'Connor High School. As you all know,
Hi, John.
O'Connor's
How's Craig doing? Good.
at the corner of 16 and Leslie Road. Next slide. And currently there are 4 ag barns on the west side of campus. This project is going to be addressing 2 of those. That would be building P, which is the swine building, and building N, which is the poultry and goat building. Next slide, one slide. Currently what we have on the top portion of the slide is the existing condition. We have central circulation for both animals, staff and students.
Because we have 2 on the side and 2 on the side.
The pens slope towards the outside perimeter of the building. And then there's trough drains there to collect any stuff. And currently there are 46 goat pens. This is building end, and there are 20 poultry pens. And after meeting with Mr. Chumley and his staff and their input, what we are recommending is the lower portion. And what brought this project about, there was an erosion of concrete underneath the animals, and the pens themselves were rusting through. So after 20 years of being in use, it's replace them. So we're recommending new pens, and we're going to divide the pens. Currently the pens are in this barn are 6 foot by about 24 foot, and we're going to replace them with 6 foot by 10 foot. We're going to change the circulation where we can go around so each kid can have access to animal, and then we're going to redo the drainage system so it doesn't go to the outside of the building where we have students and staff and animals crossing over stuff. So we're going to relocate those in the center of the pens. This building does not have heat, so we're going to provide heaters for this building as well.
Really?
And currently,
I didn't know that.
the lockers in there have been well loved and need replacement. So we're going to redo the lockers in the storage areas, add some fans and some clean the building up.
Bobby, it's actually for the livestock.
Oh, you heard me say it on that?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, those
yeah,
pigs-
it
the
is.
hogs don't have any.
Yeah, I mean, these are show animals, which means that they are not as hardy as the ones that you just have out on the farm that you throw slop to. Yeah, and they actually, and the chickens particularly, chickens need to have heat lamps. Yeah, because they're little. They're just little chicks.
No air conditioning, just
Yeah,
heat.
no air conditioning, but yeah, you actually have to put up the heat lamps for the baby chicks.
In Building P, which is the swine barn, where we have the same thing, they're identical barns, center circulation, troughs, and slope to the outside of the building. We're going to recommend the same circulation where we can go around completely, relocate the trough drains.
John, can you just, how are they going to drain? Because right now, don't they drain? They drain
They go
out
to the
on
outside
on the
perimeter.
outside.
We're going to go to the, I don't have a
The
pointer.
center, but where will they drain?
Well, it'll still, it's going to go under the building and out. It's in the.
Really?
That's how it currently is. It actually goes down and then goes out.
And it
Thank
goes
you.
back down that hill and back.
No, it goes to
Now,
a
where are they going to go
collector.
into?
There's a collector and it goes, it's a plumbing system. So, but currently, the drains are up here and we're going to do down the center.
Because that's over. Oh, that's over recharge.
Which is why you have to capture it. Yeah, it's got to be captured, so. We're also going to add some lockers here to bring up the count. And we're going from 54 pens to 112 pens.
That's great.
Next slide. And this is a section of the building. Building P, the swine barn, actually has heat, but we're going to relocate it. So we're showing the existing being moved. You can see that we're going to have a drop. We're going to slope to drains in the center of the new pen arrangement on both sides, and we're going to keep the center circulation. Next slide, please. That's the conclusion of my presentation. I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I know there was a little bit of discussion about having to do with the, where does the, the water go, where do
The waste?
the waste go. I can assure you that was brought up in the discussion, and they are gonna meet the environmental guidelines and all the necessary requirements to make sure that all that is taken care of. Because
Right.
some people were asking, where does it go?
And Mrs. Reed, do you have any comments as building committee chair?
Certainly. The building committee actually looked at this in depth, I would say, because we were trying to figure out the same questions you had. And actually, all those questions were answered and to our satisfaction, so I would recommend approval of the schematic design for the facility.
All right. I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Mr. Medina?
I just had a brief question, and I apologize, and I should have asked this during building committee. But the walkways that you're installing, I guess, and also the approach to the facilities, is that ADA?
There'll be ADA. It's the actual walk surface won't be greater than 2%. We'll have that drained to.
Okay.
And I think they are now,
Okay,
Joseph.
just asking.
Yeah.
The walkways are just, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, wait, don't leave. I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the barns are open come March, and then we'll have livestock back by August. So, and my understanding, demoing all of the concrete?
We're taking out most of the concrete in both of the buildings, and I know everyone has concern about making that deadline, but the idea is to get this bid in January, have you guys approve a contractor so that we can get started early.
So you think you'll be able to, because there's
It's
a
gonna
lot of
be-
livestock coming in
It's,
come March.
yes, ma'am, we believe we can, it's gonna be tight. I guess everyone's a little bit nervous about that, but I think we can get it done.
The last bond, I think, had another renovation of 2 barns over there, and it was very similar to
Yeah,
what
it
we're
was-
talking about in there. And we were able to make it happen just, and other renovations beyond this as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so there's a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. San Miguel,
next-
Northwest Crossing.
Right, the next item is for the kitchen cafeteria renovation at Northwest Crossing Elementary School. This is part of the 2000 program. With us is architect, Fluor Architects is Carr Hornbuckle and Andrew Perez.
Before you begin, I just wanted to tell the board, Mr. San Miguel and Carr, I don't know why, I did a presentation at TASB about the career tech evaluation, and you guys did a great job. It was really beneficial. I thought we had turnout, and I thought you had a lot of good advice for other school districts. I just want to tell you thank you.
Sure.
Did a real
Thank
good
you.
job.
Thanks for participating with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Woods. We want to tell you tonight about our project at Northwest Crossing Elementary School. We are completing a kitchen and cafeteria upgrade scope. So on the second page of your booklet, you see an outline of the scope of work that's being completed. This is a similar scope to that done under the 2014 bond at a number of your other elementaries to update and expand the kitchen space as well as make overall improvements to the cafeteria area. And I can just in more detail as we look at some of the corresponding images. So just to orient you to the campus, the cafeteria space is immediately adjacent to the main public entry, and the kitchen is just to the side of that along a service on the right-hand side of the site. This is the existing layout. The kitchen space is not as large as you would want in one of your newer elementary schools, so we are proposing a small addition in addition to completely demolishing that space and laying out the kitchen space differently. We're also making a few improvements in the cafeteria, notably around the proscenium for the platform area. So on the next slide, you'll see a proposed arrangement for the renovation scope. We're actually doing an addition to the far right for the freezer cooler area so that the size of those can meet standard, and then relaying out all of the kitchen space, the scullery, as well as the serving lines within the existing. In the cafeteria itself, we're modifying the front of the platform. Right now, there are just very narrow steps at either end to step up onto the stage. We're proposing to create a new proscenium that would be consistent with your other elementary schools. That also gives us the space to add a coffee bar to the left-hand side of that, which this campus doesn't currently have. So we can kind of add that into the scope as well. That's the layout. We can come back to it on the next couple of slides. I can show you some images for how this scope will look. This slide is looking at the proposed new proscenium for the stage. There's a small image that shows you the existing. They have a very limited proscenium there now. As I said, we're adding the steps along the front of the platform and the coffee bar area. And then on the next slide, looking from the opposite corner, we'd be looking at the serving lines for students to file in at either end of the space, come towards the middle at the pay station, and file back out into the cafeteria proper.
Yeah, I did have one question. One of the questions that we raised was to make sure that the cabinetry, the bar, coffee bar would be tall enough to have the big coffee pot under there.
Yes.
Right, that's been adjusted.
That's been adjusted? Okay. Other than that, I think this will be a good addition for that school. So unless anybody else has a question, I would move approval.
All right, is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the schematic design for the cafeteria kitchen renovation Northwest Crossing Elementary School. Seeing no questions or discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed, ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item of business is the libraries at John Marshall.
Ms. Chumley, board members, we have the upgrades at John Marshall High School for the library. It's a 2014 bond initiative. And with us, we have, with Garza Baumberger is Roy Lewis and Alma Patilla. The presentation tonight will contain two options. The building committee felt the need to present this to the entire board. We will be asking at the end, the conclusion, for the board to select one option so we can move forward with the next phases of the project. So with us is Roy Lewis, who'll do the presentation.
Hey, Roy.
Great, thank you. Ms. Chumley, Dr. Woods, members of the board for having us here tonight. We'll start off. The scope of the work includes renovation to the library or upgrading that was approved in the 2014 bond. What we looked at were how we could do a renovation or addition to the existing, which would conform to the NISD design standards. Currently, the current area of the library is at 6,100 square feet. The design guide is over 11,000 square feet. So we have a shortage of about 5,500, almost 5,600 square feet on it. Our goals in looking at this library were to bring the existing library up to the design standards, to maintain the appearance of the building within the campus, to eliminate or optimize the floor level that is currently in the library, to introduce more natural lighting to the spaces. We also want to implement some of those design concepts for the newer libraries were implemented at Harlan High School as well. That would include the technology, the flexibility of the space, the casual study areas, the classrooms, the meeting spaces, and movable stacks. Some of the challenges that we're going to encounter is that the proximity of the library to the theater, to the administration, as well as parking in the area, all have to be looked at so that those areas can all operate during construction of this library. It'll also take us, how we can keep the campus open and the normal operations during the entire process of renovating this library. We'll have to look at the displacement of the library services during construction, as well as what kind of mechanical, electrical loads are going to be increased, any addition that we do on it. Looking at the floor plan, this is the existing floor plan that you have. In the front of the library is mainly reading areas. Then you have a 3'6" floor level change that has to be accessed by a fairly long ramp system getting up to that space of where the stacks are. You have a space over here that's currently occupied by the Career Center that is was put there after the renovation of the cafeteria. Go ahead. We looked at the pros and cons. The nice thing about the space where it is right now is it's in our opinion, it's a great location for the campus itself. The building helps define the character of the campus. And you have an existing storage space that is utilized under this stack currently. Some of the cons are that obviously it is well below the design square footage that is in the design guide. We deal with this 3'6" floor level change. Also, it's very dark up in this area. We'd like to see that it lacks windows, that we'd like to bring in natural lighting to that area. It's hard to see it in this picture, but you can see how dark it is when you look up into that stack space in that current library. This is a section through the library in which you would enter here. You have fairly low ceilings at 9 feet. It does open up higher, but then you have to go up 3'6" and you're back to about a 10-foot ceiling in this area. This is the area that you currently have storage underneath. Minimal height, though. It's really not even to code standards for clearances underneath there. We started off by what we call option one, and that would be with the budget in mind. The thought was to keep the original building intact, add on to the two sides where we could, leave the existing canopy where we could, but cut down the floor out of the structure to bring it all to the same floor line.
By doing this, the existing structure or the envelope of the building can remain intact. The floor line will all be on the same floor level, and then we'll introduce natural lighting along the perimeter here, and we'll put the perimeter seating much like we did at Harlan High School. The cons of this are the fact that the library space with this design is still about 2,350 square feet short of our targeted design guide square footage. The other product of doing it this way is that we will lose the storage that's underneath. Now, we are looking at other spaces where you can do it. Currently, there is a space over in the L building that we feel like could easily handle this amount of storage for a time being.
What's the L building?
The future CTE.
Okay.
Just this section here shows you that we can a larger volume of space inside, and it's all on the same level.
Brian, that's down there.
Option number 2.
Well, wait, Roy.
Yes, ma'am.
How much stuff is stored underneath there?
Box material.
Like,
Yeah, the principal has said they can find another place for it, so
I just don't want them just throwing it in the shops in that building where CTE is.
I believe there's some paper goods and things like that.
And they may get a storage facility to do, you can rent those.
There are pockets within that building that could allow these types of storage in much higher.
My house.
Because they're not being fully utilized.
Okay.
Option number 2 that we looked at would try to expand the building. As you can see here, this is the original envelope size. What we're proposing to do is tear off the front portion of the building, keep this portion of the building where it was, lower the floor down to the main floor level, but expand out into this area where we could open library space a little bit more to get it closer to the design guide standards. Okay. This option gives us as close to the design guide as we're almost right on target with this. You know, with some adjustment, we could actually meet it if we squeezed it a little bit in some areas. By pulling this away, this gives better view of the whole area. We could introduce more glass along the classrooms to get that full visibility into those rooms. We have the computer areas off to the side, like we do at Harlan, and we can create a conference room that has visibility into it from 2 sides. So it really creates a good environment inside there. Just the only thing I was going to say is, of course, with the added square footage, there does come an increase in cost, which is a disadvantage to this plan. We are in this plan, we are introducing a canopy in there that would have to replace the canopy, just because we're pushing it pretty close to the parking and driveway in this area. This building footprint pretty much takes up the space that was occupied by the current canopy. Section through this building, we get the high ceiling spaces. We also are looking at maybe specialized ceiling in this spot, and you'll have your perimeter seating around the windows like we have at Harlan. Looking at the exterior of the building, this would be an option 1. This would be keeping the original envelope intact with the canopy going around to where we're adding on the classroom and some of the workroom spaces on the sides. We would then be introducing the windows along the perimeter on here. Just swinging around to the end, because we are pushing out with this classroom area here, we would then take what used to be the entrance to this entrance to the building and move it into this space and add a canopy along the front of the building there. We feel like this would also tie in the canopies all the way around the front of the building. In option number 2, it's a larger space. In this, what we're proposing, since this is new construction, we are looking at maybe borrowing from some of the elements at the theater on this and introducing some of these features, some of the canopies to kind of replicate. We'll still have all the windows across the front, It's just a little bit larger massing. Moving around the side there, it encroaches just a little more into that space, but it still leaves you, Alma, 35 feet. Across, from there across. So there's still adequate space.
Yeah, that's pretty sizable. That's what I didn't realize it was so big.
I'll just, if I could, Mrs. Chumley, just a couple of comments, because we've got a couple of options here, and I know Roy wants to show just some concepts of what the interior would look like, but I know one of my concerns when I see options was, did option 2 encroach too close and kind of really cramp that space between what would be the new library and the existing auditorium? And when I heard that figure, I said, okay, we can make it through that. Obviously, option 2 is a much larger space. Obviously, in just my thinking about what to say, what to recommend, is we've got a budget to do either of these projects. Obviously, option 1 is cheaper than option 2. Obviously, it's a square issue. However, I don't anticipate that in any of us time sitting in these that we'll ever come back to this library. And so, because we have the budget and because option 2 gets us essentially to the existing standard, that's really the way that I would lean in making a recommendation on this.
If I could,
Yes,
yeah,
please.
add
Ms.
something.
Reed?
It doesn't actually get us to the standard. It gets us onto the standard.
What,
Yeah.
100 square feet on
Sure.
an 11,000
Yeah,
square
but it
foot
gets us
space.
much closer to it, so.
We could tweak things to try to get it
Yeah.
right there.
So, but for this, our original Northside High School, which is now Marshall, it certainly needs to come up to standard because it's been way too small and too dark. And I think when the building committee looked at it, we said, you know, if we have the money, this is where we should go. So that was our recommendation as well.
Dr. Harrell?
Just real quick, I'm sure this happened, but I just want to be reassured that library services gave input, because these are not your mother's libraries anymore. And so the learning space, using that for group projects and for research and maker spaces, things like that, they put.
They've been at every meeting we've
Oh,
had.
well, of
discussing.
course they
Just
were.
a historical perspective, we
And the
used
principal.
Harlan.
And the principal,
If you
right.
remember, Harlan kind of pushed the envelope on the
Yes,
type
they
of
did.
libraries that we wanted to see in our high schools. So we used that model and then re-examine it when we were doing this particular model as well.
Right.
And see what the pluses and minuses or the pros and cons are, and it was well received. So the model that we use is Harlan. Of course, the librarian, the actual librarian at Marshall, along with library services, and the principal as well, were all engaged in a conversation before we came to the building committee and obviously to the board.
Great. And then I
They
had
had some
one other
great
question.
input.
Oh, okay. Oh, of course, they are experts. So the outside, the picture at the top is,
That's option.
well, okay, the
Option
top and the
one.
bottom look, yeah. So either one, is there, so when you look at the fine arts building, there's windows that go all the top. Is there no windows?
They are.
So where?
They're at the
But
bottom.
under the
But I mean, up
canopy
on top,
on the
there's,
top.
to let even more light in.
So one of the challenges with libraries, and we have a lot of different models at Northside, is what we've been told is you put too much light in there, we can't control the light, especially if you do presentations and things of that nature. So an overabundance of windows would bring in a tremendous amount of light, obviously.
Okay, 'cause it,
However, we did put windows at the bottom portion where we have a better opportunity to be able to control the light, especially
Okay.
in those spaces.
And this would be the option 1, and what we're doing is introducing the windows in here. As you can see, the canopy that's out there.
right there.
This
Right.
is already up there around 14 feet high, so, you know, it's getting up there. We didn't take this higher mainly because we have this canopy out
Okay,
there.
okay.
If you go to the next one, you're going to be having a canopy that is coming around the exterior right here, so we were stopping at it here. we would have to take that ceiling up considerably higher to try to get really high
Makes sense.
spaces in there.
And there's going to be a lot more lighting in the ceiling as well, so it's going to be much lighter than that.
Mr. Lopez, I think you had pressed. Dr. Harl, were you
I'm done.
finished? Okay. Mr. Lopez?
No, I was just going to comment on some of that, according to what Dr. Woods had said. One of the things that we did talk about in the committee meeting was, keeping to, and that was key for us. And even though we were going to be a little short, that was the main focus, because it is one of our older campuses, and we do value a lot of our older schools. And well, senior campus, I guess. So that was one of, veteran, whatever. So, but yeah, that's why, I think most of us option two as being the better option for the campus, for the kids, and modernizing that library. So, thank you.
I've got a question. So, cost-wise, we're still within budget? I can't see that piece. We're still within the original budget of the,
No, we're not. And that's one of the reasons we brought it forth, is because we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 short of the 4.1 to 4.6. We figure that in between there is where the number should be, about 4.4. So we're a little bit short. However, I think Dr. Woods' comment is, there's not going to be an opportunity for us to come back in the future. And so we can afford the $400,000 to be able to upgrade it to option two.
so I agree with that. I just have a question, though, on just, and Roy, I love your design. I think it's great. I completely support option two, but having been on this board a long time and building committee many years, and have had challenges when architects bring designs to us that come knowing that they are over our budget. So did we as a staff ask him to give two options, knowing that it was going to be over the budget that we had budgeted?
That's correct. Part of our responsibility is to try to bring this project as close to the project budget that we have.
I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure
But
that.
yes, we did. And so I can tell you that option one is well within the budget that we have established. However, knowing and understanding that the impacts of the school, like I mentioned a little while ago, that we probably won't be there in the future. And because we still have a little bit of savings from our previous bonds, I think it would be worth the investment to put it up.
When we were originally looking at this as a project, should we have based our budget on wanting to go to as close to the design guide as we did?
Yes. We didn't have Harlan, if you remember. This is a 14 bond. So at Harlan, it was way before we even started having that discussion about the size of the library and the flexibility and what we went through. So at that particular point in time, we didn't have that point of reference.
So at 2014, what was the design guide?
It's a little bit smaller than that, with not so many spaces that are included in here.
Okay, so the design that we put in the bond was going to fit the design guide that we had in place at that time?
At the time, yes. That was
At that time?
At that time, yes.
Right.
So the design grew from Harlan, and that's one of the other reasons that this particular project grew in terms of cost, is because we put more amenities that we felt was necessary.
I completely agree, but you know what I'm asking.
Yeah, I know
Leroy.
exactly.
We've had a lot of times when designs come back and it's way over budget, and it's not at our asking.
I know
And
Roy has done a lot of research.
This was one that we asked for with good reason. With good reason
I
on
think
that,
this is
because there
really
was a change in design guide.
This is an issue of timing, because
At
remember,
this.
we literally planned this project in around the 2012 timeframe. So think about the amount of time that's lapsed in that
A
period.
lot of change.
And when the design that met the standard came back within say a 10% margin, my attitude is
I know, and we've gotten-
that's a project we
yeah,
need to leverage our savings for.
I completely agree.
We've got the dollars to do that.
And since this is one of those things with our older schools, we want to take every opportunity, and now I'm talking about even going more, but we want to take every opportunity to to dress up these schools, because you're right, we won't come back. And that's one of the things that we've talked about with the Holmes Auditorium, is we want to make sure. So, Roy, I don't know, there's something that just isn't striking me on option 2's exterior. I don't know. So, and that's something that we can come back to, because this is just the schematic to start. Right? On the exterior, we can come back and kind of look at.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's just, I don't know.
If you're talking about cosmetics.
I'm talking about cosmetic.
Yes.
And
We
we
can come
talked
back.
about, do we want to go with this type of a canopy system, or do we want to do something a little more contemporary, or something?
I didn't mind the canopy, or maybe what you're talking about, changing the canopy, but it's just that broad, big space in between the roof and the start of the canopy. I don't.
Where would John Marshall go? I know the marquee's right there, but the words John Marshall High School.
Well, and that was a subject of debate with the principal, and that she was trying to stress this is not the entrance to the.
So one of the things to consider is
And I don't think that would say that in the, it's one of those things, someday we'll all be gone, someday the principal won't be there either. So we need to look forward to
the master plan will.
What we do, we need to look at 20 years from now, how do we want this school to look? So
The master plan will undertake a major renovation at the administration. That would probably be one of the next things that we will be recommending, because it is woefully undersized for the types of facilities that we're building. You can imagine anything from literally anything literally from here that way, which is the administration, probably would have to either be raised or completely renovated or demolished. And so there is where I think we're going to put the new face of Marshall over time. But for right now, we got one piece we added, it's an auditorium. Now we're in another piece, and now we're moving forward to the right of the campus, so to speak, where the administration is going to.
just when, because that would be the next phase. Just give us some options on.
Sure, and we will look at the
on dressing up,
fenestration.
or maybe, like you said, a ram up there, just something. It just kind of.
We'll look at the fenestration of that building and come back, especially when we do colors and things of that nature that are what I call low cost but high impact in terms of visibility to the facility.
I think we can circle back to that.
Yes,
Okay,
we can.
and then I just have one thing. At Harlan, are the classrooms just kind of off? I don't know, they
Yes.
just seem kind of odd to me. Are y'all,
They are.
do they look kind of
Yes.
odd?
The classrooms
just
are
looks
off
kinda
this way,
Classrooms are off to
and
the
the
side.
other lab is, and the
the rest.
computer's off to the right.
Okay, it just looked kind of odd. I don't know, to me where you have.
But I wanted to mention one more thing too. If you look at the top on option 1 and look at the roof, how it's on the auditorium building, it's octagon shaped, is it
Right.
sort of?
Mhm.
Okay, and the library in that place is not. On the bottom, it has also the difference. So it matches the other building much better. And originally, it didn't have a white stripe on it either, but we said put the white stripe so it matches the other building. So it'd be smaller because it's not as big a space. And I personally don't think, the windows that are on the auditorium are huge. So you're not going to be trying to replicate
Can't
that
do
over
that,
there.
I don't think.
And because of the extra lighting into there, and we've got the lighting coming in now through windows and also much more ceiling light. So I would move approval of the schematic design for Marshall's,
Option 2.
the option 2.
All right, second? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Freeman?
I was just going to add, Katie started talking about the white line. We did talk about that particular fixture just to break the height of that ceiling over the canopy. And, maybe a 50-year-old oak, right, or landscaping out in the front of that. Maybe that would,
I'm not sure there's space left.
Or maybe, like you
I'm
said,
teasing.
a different design on the canopy. You may come back with a design on the canopy that addresses that. It just looks
Right.
big and.
I think the canopy was trying to pay respect to what was there before. So it was really more of a, because obviously that canopy is relatively narrow. The other thing we asked the principal is the usage of those canopies, and how they're actually really used. There's not a high level of use. It's only when kids are waiting for parents to pick them up, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So,
Well, great. It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any other discussion?
Okay.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Very good job.
design.
Very good job. It's a very nice design.
Stay for the.
Bye, you guys.
We still have budget to talk about.
Thank y'all.
This is the good
Y'all
stuff.
be careful going back. Building replacement, P. Rayburn.
Okay, we got one more, then this is a special.
Wait, I'm sorry.
That's number D.
Special ed ALE at Meadow
At Meadow
Village.
Village. Yes, Ms. Chumley,
I'm
again,
sorry.
this is a 2018 bond program where it provided for ALE upgrades in various of our schools. This one specifically for Meadow. We have Chesley Morales partners with Richard Morales and Mr. Jason Walters that will give us a presentation.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we're here to present the, for schematic design approval, Meadow Village Elementary School Special Education ALE upgrades. The scope of the work, upgrade ALE classroom to comply with Northside School District standards. And then we have to, we're also replacing about 10 rooftop units. And then we do have an alternate for the project. The alternate would be to install the new fire sprinklers in Area B. We also have, this is a site plan, and this shows the Loop 410, Loop 410 here, and then we have Highway 90 here, and this is where the school site is. Here's a much larger site here. This is a picture of the front of the schools here. And this is a picture of the ALE classroom right now. And Jason will present the rest of it here.
Sorry, so this image right here is showing the existing layout. And there's Area A, which there's no scope of work in Area A, as well as Area D down at the bottom here. And then Area C, there's no scope of work as well. So Area B is where we have our scope of work. The kind of orangey red color is where we're proposing, that's where the 10 new units are going to be, the rooftop units, as well as the alternate for sprinkling the building. Currently, Area A and Area B are sprinkled, but Area C, B are not. So we're proposing to sprinkle this area and have the ability to upgrade later in the future for Area C. And then the ALE area that you see in blue is the existing conditions, and we have an enlarged layout there. There's an unoccupied classroom at the top here, and first grade classroom below that. The ALE kitchen is in this area over there, and then down below that across the hallway is the ALE classroom, the existing ALE classroom. And then we have a CIS room up top of that. So as part of the standards, we're trying to group all that together. So we go then on the next slide, we're going to encompass that whole area. We're going to take the unoccupied classroom, and we're going to make that the ALE classroom now and bring that up to NISD standards. We have the kitchen next to that, as well as the restroom. And then we have a future classroom that can be used for ALE. Right now, the campus, it only has one ALE. If the ALE grows, they can expand down to that classroom there. And then the existing classroom, when the ALE was, would just become one of the other classes, first grade or whatever the principal chose. And that's kind of that's the general project. And then we do have the construction schedule that we're proposing to start in the summertime and complete it by the summer. That's why we're only doing Area B for a sprinkler and roof.
Kitchen.
That concludes the presentation, sorry.
I do too. The timeline piece, that's interesting. I like how you did that. That's nice.
Great addition to the presentation.
Do any trustees have any questions, comments? If not, can I have a motion come before the board?
Yeah, I think we looked at this, and it certainly makes good sense to us, and I think including the system on that building. So I would move that we approve the construction as presented, including the sprinklers.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the special ed ALE upgrades as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you.
And now the GMP at Rayburn.
Now the GMP. So as we have been working at Rayburn for quite a while. And also that we had this program to be able to affect more change out there. So basically, we are looking at the third amendment, and there were two previous amendments that basically complete the entire building, so to speak, or at least the scope of work that we have had. So from that perspective, amendment number 1, number 2, and number 3 for the total sum of $13.9 million is what we're presenting today. Of course, the amendment number 3 is $8.5 million, a little over $8.5 million. So this would complete the whole piece of the GMP for the intake. And we're recommending. So I know that Monty is here, John is here, and the contractor, John Rocha here, and Patrick Burns from Turner Construction are here as well. I know they're excited to stay to the very last end.
Yes, they were very. Ms. Reed, any conversation from the building committee?
No, this is just a GMP. It's a.
Okay.
Okay.
We had quite a lot of discussion about the Rayburn addition, and I guess this is not the gym yet, right?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Now we just move approval of the GMP as presented.
How's the construction going?
Delayed. We have had
because of all the rain.
rain, and every time we turn around, there's more rain, and they're trying to get out of a hole, and they're pumping literally every day. So we're looking at that to see if opportunities, and if it would just stop raining for maybe the remainder of the year and maybe part of next year,
Not gonna
then I
happen.
think we could probably get back on
So
schedule.
what are we looking at as our timeline, and what are y'all planning on doing to get us back on?
One of the things that we're doing is we're visiting with a contractor, and it's, they set a schedule, but that schedule gets blown because it rains, it continues raining. So here, we'll probably give statuses to the building committee. I did mention in our last meeting with the building committee is the project delayed at this point in time based on what we do and understand. However, as time goes on, that will probably tell us where exactly we're going to be ultimately. So we'll give a status report. Right now, I can't really tell you if it's 5 days or 10 days. Always remember it rains for a week, then it has to dry out for another week to 2 weeks. So it's not only a week delay, it may be double that amount.
And that's the worst place for soil.
Exactly, Ms. Chumley.
rain.
We have the worst soils
my
at Rayburn. That's why
gosh.
we're doing this building. The building that we
Always
knocked down
moving
was a 9-inch
to-
out of level building,
Yeah.
which created havoc because obviously of the soils.
When you have those kind of delays, are there any issues with losing subs to other jobs?
I would.
Because you have everything planned, I mean, you have a timeline, and so if you're delayed on doing it, and say you need to get whatever trade in there, are you able to keep?
Coordinate with them, just communication with them and see how the schedule plans out, so.
But you haven't had any problems with losing subs or anything?
Some of the subs that we have in these bids are probably some of the better subs in terms of the relationship we have had with these subs, with a multitude of other projects. So we consider this probably a good grouping of subs that will probably stay the course with us. And obviously, there are going to be challenges because they'll be looking for work,
Yeah.
but where do they go if they don't, it's still raining?
It's still raining.
So it could be challenging for us. So I think our job, along with the contractor and the architect, is to look at all those variables and try to figure out a plan of action. And like I say, we don't have the answer for you right now, but we will have that shortly if it stops raining.
I'm sure y'all will come up with a plan
Absolutely.
on it as well. All right, so is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. Thanks for being here.
Oh, one more item. I think Monty wanted to do something. I'm not sure exactly what he
Taking a
wants.
point of professional privilege here. And kind of recognition of our long history with the district and with the dedicated work that Dr. Woods has put in for the district. We prepared a congratulations poster.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh.
Our staff from the office to recognize the award that you received.
Oh, that is very
We
nice.
appreciate the opportunities we've had. We appreciate the work that you do, and we know how hard you work. Thank you.
Oh, Monty, that is very nice. Thank you. That's very thoughtful.
And thanks for sticking around. I asked Linda to tell him, let's not do it during recognitions because I don't want to take away from the other recognitions. But thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
See, you do it to us again.
Yep.
Okay, the 12th, no bars held. Thank y'all. We're on to business and finance, Mr. Rastellini. Yeah, and the cake and, and someone jumping out of it and, and 500,000 balloons and, yeah.
Just the archway. Sorry. You don't ever get the plan.
Thank you,
Okay,
Ms.
Mr. Rastellini.
I'm ready to go.
And
Thank you,
remember
Ms.
that
Campbell.
budget amendment for what we're spending, for the 12th?
We actually had this in the budget,
Yeah,
by the way. $0.00.
We're just giving you a hard time.
I have a brief presentation for Budget Amendment 1 in your agenda item. This presentation is attached along with the actual book that reflects all the adjustments as it relates to this particular amendment. Just want to remind the board the purpose of Budget Amendment 1 deal with these particular items. On the carry forwards, we address purchase orders that we carry forward from the prior year. These are commitments not spent at August 31 that we do open up for the next year. Also, in this particular amendment, we do make formula adjustments and enrollment adjustments. Keep in mind, base day does hit us at the end of September. Also, we do have realignment of resources, and these are particularly addressed to existing budgets that, for all practical purposes, we change the account codes to deal with compliance. The current year adjustments, we do have a few of those that we bring forward in Budget Amendment 1 as 2 and 3, but in this particular adjustment, we do have staffing and base adjustments and also one-time requests. Talk about the appropriation highlights in Amendment 1. The base budget changes, and keep in mind when we make the changes to the base budget, those are items that carry forward from year. We actually are bringing forward a decrease in our base budget of about $1.6 million. The realignments that we have obviously zero. Again, as I mentioned, these particularly align budgets to TEA mandate function codes. On the staffing and enrollment adjustments, the largest we have to the budget is a reduction in our reserve units, teaching units, that amount to about $1.8 million. So we do have a reduction. And there's, again, a base budget adjustment. We do have a series of other reclassifications in our payroll cost. Particularly, there's about five different positions that we have realigned or reclassified, and so net increase of about $135,000, and the enrollment adjustment bringing formulas down, netted with formula increase for adding level to our ROTC program. We also have a net increase of about $50,000, but the overall impact on the, as I mentioned, on the base budget, about $1.6 million. When we get into the one-time costs, we'll see a increase in our one-time cost budgets of roughly 16.6 million. Now, most of these are the result of carry forward. In particular, these are campus balances that we allow to, unspent balances to be carried forward into the next year, as well as high school. Those two combined is roughly $7.5 million that basically has gone into the sweep, and we reallocate into the next year. On the purchase orders, we did have a significantly higher amount this year that brought forward about 5.7 million alone was from POs that relate to the hail damage in 2016. So those dollars are actually coming back out of the assigned or reserve in balances. The regular business POs, if you will, which is all the operations of the districts, where folks had commitments at the end of the year that did not spend those, we did bring those POs forward. That amounted to about 2.4 million. And then there were some other miscellaneous purchase orders from assigned costs that amounted to about $350,000. On the revenue highlights, we actually have a decrease in our revenue this year, and there are two items. Again, the enrollment adjustment amounted to about $3.1 million that we reduced the budget. So the netting effect of revenue adjustment and the expenditures is going to be the impact that carries through the budget is about $1.3 million. The other revenue adjustment that we had was an adjustment to our Medicaid payment. There was some changes in the reimbursement rates, so we affected the budget for those changes as well. Revenue offsets, keep in mind those net to zero. So you see an increase in appropriation and revenues amount basically the same, was about $350,000. So the overall decrease to our fund balance with Budget Amendment 1 is $21.6 million. Roughly how that's funded is about $10.6 million is coming from the unassigned fund balance, or basically the sweep from the prior year. So that number was per target. And then 11 million is coming out of committed fund balance. That concludes my presentation on Budget Amendment 1. Time the administration would recommend approval of Budget Amendment 1 as presented.
Mr. Lopez, Chairman of the Finance Committee?
No, I didn't know if anybody else had any comments.
But you have
Yes.
anything that came from the Finance Committee?
Yeah. No, a lot of this, and just a real quick comment, Madam President. This is the reason why you can see why David's department has gotten this rating by the Texas Education Agency. I'm sorry, TEA. And so the way they have managed our debt and worked with our books and accounting for a lot of our dollars, statewide and federal. So you could see why they've got that A superior rating. So a lot of this was discussed committee meeting, and unless any other members have any questions, I move for the approval of the Budget Amendment number 1 as presented.
All right, is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Budget Amendment number 1 as presented. Seeing no discussion, questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it.
The next series of items deal with our spinoff of our debt management plan for 18-19. So the 4 items that we'll take individually actually deal with bond orders, and the last one actually deals with one of the higher agents that actually administer those bonds, if you will. So with that, I just would like to tell you, and we did discuss this in Finance Committee in some detail, but these bond orders are actually written to incorporate all abilities of bonds as they relate to, for example, fixed rate issues, variable rate issues. So even though the amounts are large, it's an either or in most cases, and the bond orders are written in such manner. Bond orders and in the parameter orders, we describe the term that we can issue our bonds and new money. That's typically 30 years. We also put the parameters as far as the highest interest rate we can issue those bonds and things of that nature. So all the bond orders are written within our policies, our debt policies. And with that, what I will do is just kind of list out of our opportunities as they relate to each particular order and then turn it over to the board for action. So our first bond order that we're going to consider is working with our fixed rate bonds. So those would include new money and refunding. The bond orders are written that we can issue in one issue or a series of issues, and it would include new money authorizations from the 20, we have 100 million available there. 2018, we have 84.855 million that we would put in new money. Also, it includes several items that would be eligible for refunding. It includes the 2 remarketings, which is the 2011 A series VRDO bonds, the 20 VRDO bonds as well. Also, we do have some fixed rate issues that are eligible for refunding. We have 2003A and Series 2006A. Those 2 are available for refunding in 18-19. We also have a Series 2009 refunding issue that's available, and a 2009A school building bond available for refunding as well. And finally, the other 2 items that are eligible for refunding are the BABS issues that we in 2009 and 2007. We do list those in the bond order as being eligible. I tell you, today it doesn't look like they're good candidates, but nonetheless, if they ever become good candidates in 18-19, we'll be able to do those transactions. The total of all of those issues in the fixed order amounts to $542.01 million. Now, keep in mind, this is one or the other, but if we did all those opportunities under fixed rate, that's what the amount would be. So, does that make sense? Okay. So at this time, the administration would recommend on item 12B to approve the bond or fixed rate issues.
Mr. Lopez.
Madam President, again, this was presented in the Finance Committee. So unless any other members have any comments, I would ask that we approve. Do I move that the Board of Trustees order authorizing the issuance of Northside Independent School District unlimited tax school building and or refunding bonds in one or more series by delegated sale?
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve as read. Is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay.
Can I ask you something? And this is
Yes,
just
ma'am.
Basic finance.
Sure.
So there was a big thing yesterday about kind of the argument that's going on about the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. So how does that impact us through all of this?
Very good question. Actually, our for watching what the cost of borrowing would be, i.e. the interest rate, we focus on the 10-year Treasury bill. That's is taught that, and we watch that. So as that goes up, so does our cost of borrowing. As it goes down, so does our cost. So when you have policies like that where you see those rates ratcheting up that will typically affect those T-bills up. So it doesn't in a good way. Now, we are actually scheduled to do a transaction Thursday. Earlier, we had brought a order on another issue that was available. Fortunately, this week, the market's working in our favor. So, you know, it goes to better lucky than smart. So,
But no doubt, when the Fed Open Market Committee raises rates, that impacts anybody who is a borrower in any way. David's talking about the kind of the benchmark that we watch to kind of estimate rate would be. But when the FOMC raises rates, it impacts the entire market.
So
certainly that would impact us.
Is there a time if we would see such an increase that we would say, let's not sell these at that point, let's hold them? And do you have the authority to do that within the way that this
yes, ma'am.
resolution is written?
Again, in the parameter orders and even in our debt policies on refundings, there is a benchmark that we have. That's why I say the BABs are not really good candidates, because they fall below that benchmark. So, for example, transaction we're looking at Thursday, we expect net present value savings somewhere just a little above 13%. I mean, that's what we're expecting. Our floor, quite frankly, is 5% or 3%. I can't remember which one. We haven't been so close in forever.
A long time.
But when we look at refundings, yes, if we get down there, in the first place, we probably wouldn't pull the trigger on that transaction. But if we get down to that point, we would pull that action off the table. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it goes to the core of why we bring these series of resolutions all at once, so that we're not trying to be in a rush to come to the board to maximize market conditions. We bring all of these at one time, and I know it's painful, but we bring them all at one time, and that gives staff and our financial maximum flexibility to look at the market, study the market, and get the best situation for us. This is one of the hallmarks of Northside's debt policy that stands apart from a lot of districts, including some very large districts. What this district started back in 2001, this process that you're seeing here replicated again tonight, is one of the reasons why we come every year and we say, look at the cost avoidance and the savings in a program. It's this flexibility that you've allowed staff and the FA to make those kinds of good decisions.
The only exception as it plays against trying to pick where the market is, if you will, is when we issue new money. You know, we've always taken the approach that when we need to issue debt to pay for projects, we're going to do that, and the market is the market. So there's been times where we've actually issued debt without PSF guarantee, really bouncy markets, but with our debt management, we're able to glide through those ups and downs, if you will. So
I hope those are few and far between.
They cycle.
Did we
Yes.
vote on
Yeah,
A?
we voted on A, we voted on B.
Right.
No, we haven't.
We are on C right now.
Motion, we're just waiting for a
I
second.
thought we already,
Okay, here we go.
yeah, I
Item
thought we
C.
already voted on B.
Sorry, I got lost.
We voted on B, and so we're on C. Yeah,
I made a motion,
that's what I've got.
second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Okay,
The ayes have it, motion carries. Wait,
that was B.
we already did, guys, back up. We voted on A, we voted on B.
Right.
And
He was going now to present C.
I'm going into C.
He's going into C. So, yeah, we've already done A and B. So,
I got
Okay.
yeah, so that was
Okay.
C. He hasn't presented it yet.
I'm ready to go.
We voted on,
All right, here we go. Item C. Here
Item
we go.
C. Item C is again, parameter order, and this is dealing with issuing bond variable rate, which would include the new money, which is $184 million, plus refunding it's, the refunding candidates is $148.9 million. The new money's $184.85 million, for a total of $333,780 million. With that, I would recommend approval of the parameter order as presented.
This is for C, right? Am I correct?
C, item C,
Sure.
full rate.
This was all discussed in Finance Committee earlier this evening, so I move that the Board of Trustees adopt an order authorizing the issuance of Northside Independent School District variable rate unlimited tax school building funding bonds in one or more series by delegated sale.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries.
The next
D.
two bond orders actually deal with the variable rates that are coming up remarketing this year. So these orders actually give us the authority to remarket those particular issues. First one in item D is the remarketing of series, ending series of 2011A. With that, I would recommend approval of that
Item
bond
D.
order as presented.
Again, this was discussed. I move that we, Board of Trustees, adopt an order authorizing the remarketing of Northside Independent School District's variable rate unlimited tax refunding bond series 2011A by delegated sale.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize the remarketing of NISD District Variable Rate Unlimited Tax Refunding Bond Series 2011A, 2011A by delegate. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Item number E.
Item number E is the last bond order. It is for, similar as the previous one, the remarketing of Series 2014 VRDO bonds.
Mr. Lopez.
Again, this was discussed in Finance. I move that the Board of Trustees adopt an order authorizing the remarketing of Northside Independent School District's variable rate unlimited tax school building bonds Series 2000 by delegated sale.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt an order authorizing remarketing Northside Independent School District variable rate unlimited tax school building bond series 14 by delegated sale. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Next item of business.
The last item that I have for to consider is actually passing an order allowing the administration to authorize the selection of one or more qualified financial institutions to act as paying agent, register, and/or tender agent for these bond issues. With that, I would recommend the order as presented.
Again, this was presented in the Finance Committee meeting this evening, and so I move that the Board of Trustees adopt an order authorizing the selection of more qualified financial institutions to serve as paying agent / registrar and/or tender agent for certain outstanding districts' indebtedness.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the motion as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you, Ms.
One
Kimberly.
quick question, David.
Yes, ma'am.
How do y'all determine these and
Determine the agents?
the agents?
Yeah, very good question. Typically, what we do is we ask our F2 send quotes out to these particular institutions, New York, U.S. Bank, those are our typical players. These are not high fee kind of operations as far as taking care of these bonds, so we let them do the quotes for us and they'll give us the results, and that's selection internally.
And we have certain specifications of how they have to be rated and
Oh, yes, yes.
and all
yeah,
of that.
Yeah, they
that
have,
secures their privacy.
they have to be
guidelines.
familiar with this business, because basically it's almost like keeping up with stock. They keep a register of who owns it, there's no paper anymore. So they're charged with actually collecting the money, we pay them the money, and they disperse it to the bondholders and things of that. So yes, they have to be, they have to meet certain qualifications to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hill, we're talking insurance.
We are, again. And Mrs. Chumley, with your permission, I'll defer to our Director of Risk Management, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
How are you?
Good to have you
See you
with
about
us.
once a year, huh?
Yes.
For the exciting topic. Yeah. So good evening, Dr. Woods, Ms. Chumley, members of the board. Tonight, we seek your approval on our property insurance renewal. An RFP was requested for property, boiler, and machinery insurance, which expires November 16th. Currently, our annual premium is about $2.2 million, reflecting a 1% wind-hail deductible per location with a maximum deductible of $2.5 million per occurrence. Due to our 2016 hailstorm claim, valued at approximately $74 million, and the continued wind, hail, flood storms across the state of Texas and the country, the property market remains constant with premium increases and higher deductibles. Also, our total insured value of all our NISD scheduled property has increased by 10% due to continued renovations and the opening of Mora Elementary. The market was recent, and the incumbent quoted 5 options, including a 1% wind and hail deductible per location with a maximum per occurrence deductible of anywhere from $2.5 million to $10 million. Our recommendation is to remain with the incumbent vendor, Westchester, for option 1, which provides $400 million in coverage with a $2.5 million maximum deductible on wind hail per occurrence, the same as we currently have. All other coverage limits and deductibles remain the same as the expiring policy. Our total annual premium would be $2.5 million, $444,252. This is a 1-year contract.
That's the most that we could get.
That's the best we can do.
Wow.
And I only think it's going to get a little worse better, yeah, in the next couple of years.
One thing we did ask Debbie to do was to look at, some other options. Obviously, you see several with regard to what the out-of-pocket would be. And so we did some analysis with regard to, is it worth it in premium dollars to increase your exposure? The other thing we asked Debbie to go back and research what some lower loss limits would be. But again, there wasn't a lot of savings in premium, and the district takes on significantly more risk for what would be a relatively small savings. So absolutely concur with Debbie's recommendation.
I do too.
Thank you.
Looking at it, you did a good job on it.
Thank you.
Trustees have any, Ms. Freeman?
A question, only one quote was received. Is it because we have just a lot of assets, or our liability is?
Well, there were numerous quotes, but not on the primary policy, in order to get the layered policy program down, like the deductibles and the amount of I'm trying to say, the amount of coverage that we needed. We had to use numerous companies. But Westchester will hold the policy for us.
So we have several companies just because of the dollar amount. Wow. Okay.
In order to even get it down to where it's manageable.
This is an area where size presents a challenge for a lot of companies. The amount of assets that we're insuring, frankly, there are a lot of companies that just can't be a player in the market that size.
Okay. Our total insured value is
It's
so
just so large,
high.
right?
Yeah.
With 150 facilities, it's massive.
And to offset,
Sure.
to reinsure.
And they're very nice buildings.
Mr. Lopez.
This was discussed in the Finance Committee.
Oh, it was.
It came up in our Finance Committee this evening, so I would move that we move for approval on keeping the current vendor, Westchester, as as presented by Debbie Glass. With option, I'm sorry.
Option 1.
Option 1, I'm sorry.
It's been moved and seconded. that we keep our current vendor, option 1. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. My computer just went down.
Thank you.
No, it just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, Linda usually gives me a hard copy agenda. That's okay. All right, next item of business is request for maximum class size waivers.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley, last month we do, and we will continue every month really through March, bringing or requesting for waivers. We brought 118 for you for approval. This month, once again, we've exceeded the 22 to 1 in 12 classrooms, so much lower than the 108. Still keeps our K through 4 average classroom size to 20.07, well below the 22. And so our request is for approval of 12 class waivers.
Is there any questions or comments?
I would move approval of the waivers as presented. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the class waivers as presented. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and motion carries. Next item of business on the agenda is the first reading and adoption policies. Mr. Galindo.
Yes, ma'am. So we discussed this in policy, obviously, and in your blue folder, you actually have a summary of the legal policies. Obviously, I'm not going to read them, but I'll hit some highlights. There were 57 legal policies as part of Update 111 with almost 450 pages. Even though it was pretty large in terms of the page number and number of legals, it only affected 6 of our locals. So that being said, packet, you do have a summary of the 5 legal policies we discussed in policy. And so I'll just hit some highlights. And again, these being legal, there is no modifications that can be made. So again, we'll just go through them. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. So the first one that we had on there, so as per usual, the number of topics that are covered. First one is AF Legal that deals with innovation districts. It's a 6-page policy. And really what it contains and some changes that were made in terms of the law from which an innovation district can be exempted from. There's information regarding posting and notification to TEA in terms of any innovation district applications, and then language also and information regarding the innovation plan itself if a district chooses to do that. The next one, BBD Legal, a little longer in terms of the summary, a little more of a discussion. So in policy, deals with training and orientation for trustees. 3 main points there are that there's information that includes State Board of Education commendations for board superintendent teams that effectively implement the commission improvement evaluation tool. That's on page 2, so information there if you're interested regarding that. Another, and this one you're familiar with, clarification language about team building that should be 3 hours in length, which I'm sure, as you know, this board is very familiar with and has had in practice. And a third change to bring to your attention in that policy is a new requirement that trustees complete a 3-hour continuing education training regarding the evaluation student performance. And so that also is included as part of that update. The next one's BR Legal, and it literally is a list of reports, 32 of them to be exact. The changes come to report number 7, which deals with that trustee continuing education component. And then number 18 also is a change to that list of reports, which has language for districts that are part of TRS active care and those that aren't, and the requirements regarding that. The last 2 legals I included in there just purely if they're of interest to you. One of them deals with security personnel, CKE legal, and it's a 14-page policy regarding the school program. And although we don't have a school marshal program, that's been a topic that's been discussed a lot. We obviously have fully commissioned officers, but that goes into depth as far as the requirements to have a school marshal program, again, which we do not. And then the last one deals with campus charters. It's a new policy, 8 pages on all the material and information regarding any new district going to partnership charters. And so all the rules and regulations are found in that policy. So that's a quick
highlight of some of the policies that actually affect our locals. And again, because we do ask for formal approval and adoption.
Ms. Freeman, as Policy Committee Chair, did you have any? Wait, no, Mr. Medina, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley.
Mr. Medina.
We did review and go over the legal policies as discussed by Mr. Galindo, the updates to 111, and we are requesting that we approve these, accept these policies as discussed.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the legal TASB updates as discussed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. I'm getting tired, I will admit that. I am getting tired. Okay, next item, first reading of local policies.
Yes, ma'am, and also, now these follow along if you can, and also in your blue folder is a summary of these. Obviously, with a little more discussion we had in policy regarding these. The first one is BBD local, that once again deals with trustee training and orientation. And if you'll see in blue, new language now of an annual report of trustee training status. Even if an election is not being held, the report is recommended for transparency purposes. So as a Board of Trustees, your election's being held in May. This report would occur in April, which I believe you've been practicing already anyhow. And yes, ma'am, now it's formally in code.
Should we do it in
The next policy is CAA, and I might add that all of these are pretty minor also in terms of the changes. It's found on page 3, and this one deals with fiscal management. And on page 3, you'll see one sentence, new language, really just broadens the number of people that an individual can report to if there's any suspicion of any type of fraud or impropriety, financial impropriety. And so the discussion here with TASB was that this line was added so that individuals, again, and especially the school district, large like ours, has someone and they don't feel restricted as to who they could report to. And mainly law enforcement, which many districts will have superintendent himself. And so you'll see the individuals there along with that line now, which really just kind of broadens the ability of someone to be able to report. Anyone in authority, they can be able to bring that suspicion to. So that's for CCA local.
And this is for first reading only, so we'll vote on it at the next board meeting.
Next one's CJA. This one deals with emergencies, and just to summarize this one, what this allows now, it's a new policy, is that an individual who has not gone through a complete background check can be allowed in if they're accompanied by a district employee, and this is for emergencies only. So as discussed in policy, if you had a situation over the weekend with an electrician or a plumber that needed to go into the business, would allow for that, even though they may have not been through a thorough or complete background check. Again, they're accompanied by a Northside employee, a practice we probably have already been doing, but now is in policy. Next one's DEA, deals with compensation, and the changes are one of two. The real new change comes at the bottom that deals with premium paid during disasters. This comes from FEMA, and let me back up a little bit because the paragraph before that, although it looks like it has a lot, really doesn't. And what that goes on to now have, and a little clearer, is that if there's an emergency and a school district has to close, you as a Board of Trustees can choose to pay the individuals after the fact, and just by adopting the resolution, which you've already done. I know that in my tenure, we've gone through several times during ICE days. The bottom piece is a new piece, and that is if the federal government's involved, mainly FEMA, declared a federal disaster. This calls for individuals who are hourly to be paid time and a half. However, they do make it clear that before that actually takes place, a conversation with FEMA should occur to ensure that if there's going to be any federal be paid for individuals,
that conversation is had. So that's the bottom of one of two on DEA. Moving right along, DHE is the next policy, deals with employee standards of conduct. There's a new section in blue on the first page. This language really, what we've already had in practice, according to the Department of Transportation, and that is that any individual who is under the reasonable suspicion of alcohol or drugs can be removed from duty and required to be tested. This piece was added at the front of this policy so that it now includes any employee. There was some confusion in that a lot of folks thought that this only applied to anyone who was driving a vehicle because it was the Department of Transportation rules and regulations. So this now expands it to any employee regardless, and is subject to the same type of possible removal and testing and consequences, as well as may add if they don't want to get tested. So in other words, as their employer, we can and will require them to be tested if we feel the need. Next policy is DI, and it's if you're looking at it, it's completely stricken. It's recommended to be deleted. This policy is addressed both under legal and local, so they're recommending we delete it and have it addressed in those other areas that are already, as I mentioned, covering it. And then the last one is FEA. It deals with attendance. This is one that should be very familiar to you. We brought it not too long ago. Much like a student that can take days to go visit colleges and universities, we now allow that for anyone who is seeking to get into the armed services. And so a little clarity, they have up to 4 days after the age of 17 to be able to take those visits if they want to join any or pursue enlistment of any branch of the U.S. Armed Services or even the National Guard. And so theoretically, I guess you could be 17, a junior, so you could take a couple days your junior year as well as your senior year. And that clarifies it from the original language that we had. So those are the policies, Ms. Chumley, as update 111 that are recommended for changes. This is first reading, so any questions between 6 months, we'll be glad to answer them. Would like to add that Naomi Miller, our government relations specialist, is helping me out. So moving forward, she could hopefully provide a lot of insight, especially if she's there when some of these policies are changed.
Very good. Naomi, I wanted to tell you too, and I should have when we were talking about the editorial board. It's new having a governmental relations person, but I really appreciate the job you did in preparing us and working with us when we met with the editorial board. It's good to have you on board. All right, so moving on. Next item of business is 2018 Citizens Bond Advisory Committee. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. As you and the rest of the board are well aware, our patrons approved a bond in May 18, and just as we recognize some of the outgoing members of the 2014 Citizens Bond Advisory Committee, it is now to develop and put together a 2018 Citizens Bond Advisory Committee. So attached to your agenda item is a list of people that we recommend. What you will see there is a nice combination of people who have been involved in this process in the past, desire to continue, and some folks that we identified during the large meeting process, many of whom are young parents of elementary age children who were very interested in the process and engaged and wanted to continue. And so what we're trying to accomplish in this list is a mix of veterans and rookies to this process so that we can continue to build our bench in this area.
Do we have anything on the ones that were on it before and are still looking at on how they were on their attendance?
We actually do keep that. What I'll tell you just by looking at this list of people is they're the folks who are the most regular in their attendance. This list of people.
All right. And we need approval on this?
Yes, ma'am. We'd recommend approval.
All right. Is there any motion to come from the board?
I move that we approve the 2018 Citizens Advisory Committee as presented by Dr. Woods.
All right. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the 2018 Citizens Bond Advisory Committee. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the renaming of Business Careers High School.
Yes, ma'am. As you know, we not long ago brought a review of proposal for revising the curriculum associated with what is now called Business Career School, so that in the 2019 school year we'll begin with a refocus of 3 strands: business and finance, computer programming, and cybersecurity. One of the things that occurred to us along the way is that we might need a refresh to both the name of the campus as the logo, and there have been many conversations involved in that. One of the things that is to your agenda is a series of potential logos that
Why this is doing this?
one of the pieces of feedback that we heard along the way was that we needed to make sure that it was obvious the campus was on the Holmes High School campus, and so each of these logos incorporates that information. And so we don't, while we're not asking for the logo to be approved, we are asking for the name change to be approved, and the recommendation is Northside School of Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship, which is exactly what we intend to teach to the young people at that site. But as I said, we have been careful to make it clear that this campus has been and will continue to be located at Holmes High School.
But you don't want anything on the logo right now.
We have a tendency to use multiple logos. Sometimes we use one set of logos for one audience and a different one for another. If you've got an audience that already knows what the school is doing, you may not need the one that's being shown right now that has a lot of wordiness to it. But if you had an audience that you were trying to communicate, perhaps you'd use this one. Really, what we're asking for approval on is name.
Is there a motion come for the board? Ms. Freeman?
Yes. I don't know why I thought we approved the name the last time we had a lot of discussion. I like the logos. I like the name. I move approval.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the name, the renaming of Business Careers High School. Is there any discussion? I just have a couple of comments. Number one, Anthony, thank you so much. I have a much better understanding of how we came to be where we are, and I appreciate what you did. Going forward, I had 2 concerns. That we not engage the teachers or the staff or the students at Business Careers, or actually even the community, to let them know that we are renaming their school. I think that's a mistake. I do think, though, I feel much better with we had a committee, Katie, that was very limited. The students do not know that we are renaming their school.
I thought this was their logo.
No. It's not. No, it's not. And the students don't know that we are renaming their school. And I still personally think that that's a mistake with that piece of it. But I'm just so much more comfortable with the logos, and that we are including Holmes in each one of them. And actually, I had talked to a couple of the students, and they really like it. And when they knew it was the power button, they really thought it was cute. So just that was the only thing. Is I support the curriculum change. I think that was a wonderful recommendation, and you did a lot of research and work to it. I appreciate that you came back with an idea of having Holmes High School in all of the logos that would be recommended. Since you're saying that we're not voting on a logo, all of them would be options.
And likely all of them would be used in different settings. Yes.
And all of them have Holmes High School
That's accurate.
on them. So, anyway.
I think that the students developed the logo. Who did develop the logos?
Staff, I think.
It was a strategic design that included a few students, industry folks, some parents, and staff. And so they went through a process about what is the highest hope for what we would like to see from a Holmes graduate or business careers graduate. And so from that came the language there for the innovation, the technology. In fact, there's 8 tenets that they came up with. Be ethical, technical, community-oriented, innovative, entrepreneur, communicator and collaborator, and a problem solver. So they came up with these. From there, that's how that name came to be. And then from there, the logo just kind of started to take its own shape.
Thank you. So I feel much better with that coming back, and I appreciate that discussion and that y'all came back and added Holmes to it. And I know that we have something later on in the agenda to talk about our renaming process going forward. That's the only thing I have real reservations about, us not telling our student that we're renaming their school, that us just making this decision without that input. So, all right, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Next item of business on the agenda.
Is board member attendance at the SA to DC trip. I believe Mrs. Reed has expressed interest in attending that event, as I think she and perhaps others in the past. We have a local policy that requires board approval for travel reimbursement for such a trip, and we recommend approval at this time.
Is there a motion to come for the board?
I move approval.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve board member attendance at the San Antonio Chamber 41st Annual SA to DC trip. Seeing no discussion, in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. You're welcome. Dr. Woods, 2019 legislative priorities.
And I'm actually going to defer to Naomi. I'll just make a couple of comments while she comes up regarding legislative priorities. She and I sat down and looked at what we had produced in 2017. Please know that what you will see is greatly informed by what we did in 2017. We did remove a couple that perhaps statutory change in the 2017 session no longer seemed relevant, and then there are a couple of adds as well. But she has done, as you will see, far better. It's a lot prettier than what I used to when legislative priorities fell under the superintendent. So what you will see is a massive upgrade, perhaps not to the priorities themselves, but to the presentation of the priority.
No pressure. So I know it's late in the evening, so I'll go through these rather fast. But if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm starting with a picture of one of my favorite buildings in Texas. This will be my 9th legislative session in some capacity, and I'm really proud that I'm going into 2019 representing Northside. And I look forward to counting time in school years instead of legislative sessions. So this is the political. I wanted to touch on a few things. Statewide offices are up on our ballots, and we expect all of the office holders to remain. Of course, we have a new Republican senator that's representing part of Northside, Peter Flores, who was elected in September, and that brought the Senate to a supermajority of 21 to 10. But there are 2 seats that are in play that might flip to Democrats, so it won't be a Senate majority when we go into session. We obviously have a new speaker that will be elected the first day of session. There's several candidates that have put their names out there, but we're expecting a nominee to be chosen by the caucus on December 1st. That doesn't mean that'll be the only one that's put up on January 8th, but it'll eliminate some of those candidates. The House will likely shift some Republican seats to Democrats, but we're expecting about 5 to 8. There's about 12 seats in play right now. In the news, there's been lots of chatter about reforming public education funding. That's nothing new. and recapture formulas. Rising property taxes are at the top of the heap in conversations at the state and local level. In fact, the city has made their number one state priority as property tax relief, suggesting the state pick up their share of funding for education. Get in line, right? There's little acknowledgement by the media and lawmakers of the true impact of rapid charter school expansion. As Ms. Chumbley said, the editorial was some progress, though. Public education in the legislature. Governor Abbott's calling for more funding for public education. Lieutenant Governor Patrick has been meeting with school districts, which is a little different, and that gives me some optimism. I mentioned new speaker, which means there'll be questionable focus in the House on public education, but everybody's pretty confident that it'll be a moderate, so we'll continue to focus on our needs. Commissioner Morath is touting the new A through F accountability system, which I'll address later. Lawmakers are generally firm in their beliefs about public education and the related costs as we move forward. This is our statement that's inside. That's a picture of our new pamphlet going into session. Northside ISD, and this should look familiar from last session. I won't go through it. This is my strategy: clear and concise messaging, firm advocacy for our top priorities, thoughtful for purposes of negotiation only, with a constant focus on what's best for our students, our teachers, and our Northside community, of course. And I'll be there to tell our story and tell our story again. This is Northside. So I focused on 3 key areas, and you'll see a lot of familiar stuff from the 2017 agenda and a couple of additions to it. So I'm going to start with finance. Obviously, we want to update our outdated funding mechanisms. So you'll see all of these items are carryover from 2017. Basically, the funding weights, updating the outdated formula elements, adequate funds for IMA, and improvements to funding for facilities. Finance continued. New item is school safety, obviously. Supporting additional and ongoing funding for school safety measures, but most importantly, leaving the discretion for that funding at the local level. The 2 taxation items are carryover from 2017. Programming support, obviously funding for full-day pre-K, including facilities, and then making sure that we get funding for all mandates that are brought on by the legislature, any governmental entity, including TEA. Last slide on finance is the general funding priorities. These are all carryover as well. Allowing the school board to set the M&O without voter approval, linking the accountability standards to funding formulas, etc., and then the items on TRS at the bottom. Our next category is school choice and charter schools, one of my new favorite subjects. Again, a lot of carryover, and the gist of it is holding open enrollment charters to the same standards as what we're held to. The new item is at the bottom, and this is one that I came up with working with Dr. Woods, and that's changes to the accountability and the transparency of charters to let the public know before they're going to build and reforming their waitlist process, because those waitlists are completely inaccurate, restructuring the application process through TEA, and limiting approval of new charter schools based on proximity to our schools. Last but not least is assessment and accountability. Again, a lot of carryover from 2017, but I added repealing the A through F accountability system and replacing it with something that's more comprehensible and mitigates for economically disadvantaged students. And the last item I added is Texas is not aligned with the U.S. Department of Education's ESSA regulations. So that'll probably happen, but that's one thing that I added. So what's next? All of these dates. We just started early voting yesterday, so please get out and vote. It runs through next Friday, November 2nd. General elections the following Tuesday, the 6th. The following Monday after that is the first day that legislators can file bills. Again, the caucus meeting on the 1st to pick a nominee for speaker. First day of session is January 8th. January 14th is when the Legislative Budget Board is supposed to deliver some estimate, and I've been told by several sources that we will have more money this biennium. Late January is when the governor will deliver his State of the State address, which lays out his priorities for session. And then the last day to file bills is March 8th. The last day of session is May 27th, hopefully. And the last day to veto bills is June 16th. So in my first 3 months, I've made a lot of new relationships and fostered old ones. So I will partner with Go Public, Root Ed, other school districts, TASB, the School Alliance, Raise Your Hand Texas, P16, and I am really trying to engage the business community more on our efforts. And that's it.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Really good job.
So you're already a lot smarter than when I used to be.
Okay, Ms. Freeman.
Do I remember correctly, at one time, did we have the item in the school districts being able to change their M&O without going to the public for a vote?
That's all.
Yeah, no, I know it's on there. I just wonder, is that the one that, I can't think of if this was our board or TASB. We talked about adapting that such that instead of that, because that, looking at that sometimes scares people. However, many districts have already passed a TRE and they're already at the 17. The challenge that they have is they can't go back and then go back up without a vote of the people. So is that item as written would address both, but what was the thought behind it?
I think that was a discussion we had 2 years ago, and I think we discussed just that. As written, it would allow for a district to maximize flexibility regardless of which direction you were going with tax rate. And I think that was our rationale for leaving the language as it sits.
Mr. Blunt.
Just one question on the school choice. One, is there anything that may benefit us in that avenue? I know a lot of them were addressing from the charter angle. I don't know, it could be a transportation, magnet schools or whatever else. I wasn't sure if there's something that we may want to think about legislation-wide.
I think we've probably got some things like that, Bobby, but they're in the funding category.
Okay, that's fine.
Because
Yeah.
one of the things we're asking for with regard to funding is that charters not be as advantaged in the funding
Okay.
regime. It's just, it probably falls under
Okay.
finance instead of the charter category.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Lopez?
Naomi, you had mentioned, by the way, great job and for what you've done right now currently. It's a lot of work and, so great job on that. You brought up the question about, or one of the items regarding how the charter schools need to inform the public that they're coming into a district. How is that going to be addressed? In what way? Is that through a zoning process or do they currently do that?
They
do
don't.
not.
They
There's
don't.
no mechanism for it.
And we don't do we do that as well?
Periodically send
We
a
don't,
letter.
we don't.
They
frankly.
periodically send a letter.
Yeah.
Well, they
The-
put up banners, there's banners.
Yeah, but there's,
What part of the
They
process are you
send a
talking
letter.
about?
Well,
Like
is that a
after?
zoning? Is that a zoning? Because
At what point?
so whenever there's new development, what you're
Yeah.
looking at is land being purchased, and then there's going to be a plan to follow, right? So in order for that land to be designated, you have to designate it as something commercial,
Yeah, that's
residential,
zoning.
whatever. So that's in the zoning process. Do they not currently do that? That's the question. And if
don't.
not, then is that a Texas law? I would assume that's a Texas law that would need to be changed, right? Is that what you're looking at?
Districts are exempt from zoning. That's a law that's out there.
and that includes charter.
And it may include charters as well.
It
Yeah.
does.
So then, is that the law that you're looking at changing, or is
I
that
think any part of that process, especially if it gets zoned and it's gonna be built, that you go to the public and you say, hey, this building's gonna be put here. I've compared it recently to a liquor store. You know, if you want to know if there's a liquor store going up in your neighborhood or sexually oriented business, the same way you would treat that, you would put a public notice out and say, there's a school being built, you know, down the street from you, come talk about it, come ask questions. That doesn't happen. So that's kind of the part in my mind that I would like to go after, is some sort of comment period for the neighborhood.
So what you're looking at is a city requirement as well, because that's planning and that's zoning. It's got to go through a planning process. It's got to also meet the zoning requirement. So that's what you're looking at.
I'm looking at ordinances, which
Ordinances.
about 10 sessions ago, this was something that came up in an interim report for public ed, where they said that they look at city ordinances as far as where these schools were going to be placed to get public comment. And that's kind of what I want to go after is.
So we also have to be very careful as to how we, I mean, because we can't discriminate either. I mean, neither can a business be discriminated against on not going there. So we have to find that fine line of, yes, you have to tell us, but you know, you still have to go through the process. So,
you have to go through the
but
process.
I like what you're doing. I'm not.
Right. It's not going to be a way to stop everyone, but it's just to make it more of a transparent process for our neighborhoods and people to know where the proximities of these schools are to their neighborhood school.
Right. Well, great job, and that's what I was curious about, you know, to hear that portion of it. So, and we can talk later on.
Yes, sir.
But thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
job on what you're doing.
Thanks.
Ms. Freeman?
No.
No, this is before. Ms. Reed?
Thank you. I think some of what we're looking for also is just notification of what they're planning on doing so that we can adjust our budgets accordingly.
Right.
So just, I mean, if nothing else, they should come and notify us that, not necessarily the city, because the city doesn't have zoning for them, but they need to let us know that they are planning on coming to these sites so that we can adjust our schedules.
That a battle with the Texas Education Agency was we would have to ask them to require it and inform us at a certain part of the process, which they're not doing now.
Right.
I don't know that there's a taste for that, but that would be a TEA issue. So I'm not saying I'm not going to ask for it, but a lot of the issues that I outlined in the new item are going to be TEA related.
Well, that's one we need to think about too, so.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is we really need a statutory change, because left to this, TEA is not going to act in this direction. So we really require a statutory change.
Right.
Okay. So
All right,
we need
Dr.
to.
Harrell. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Katie, please.
No, I was just going to recommend that we, or make a motion to adopt the legislative priorities as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the legislative priorities as presented. Dr. Harrell?
Never mind.
No, go ahead.
I'm good.
You sure?
Yes.
They're still open for discussion.
Good. Let's vote.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi.
Okay, first reading of revisions to policy CW. Dr. Woods.
So, at a conversation during the summer with regard to renaming of an existing school, there was some appetite at that point about adding language to the CW, which is obviously the policy on school naming generally, that was specific to renaming, which we have not addressed in this policy in the past. The board will recall, not very often, but a couple of times, most recently, Lackland City Elementary was renamed for long-term principal Jerry Allen. And that has been, to my knowledge, the only situations that I'm aware of where we renamed a building was where it was originally for a piece of geography or a neighborhood, and then later was named for an individual.
Except tonight.
And Powell.
And so there was some appetite at that time to that, and the discussion was that the board would, before it would consider the renaming of a building, would put out essentially an ask for nominations. And so that's which that you see in red, I think, on the bottom of page 2 of 2. It addressed that. This was discussed at policy, and I'll ask them there to address that conversation. But it is also could be looked at as relevant to the conversation we just had with regard to the renaming of business career. And I'll stop unless anybody has other questions for me.
Does anybody have any? Ms. Freeman, I'm sorry, I didn't see that, Karen.
That's okay. So this did come to policy, and we truly looked at it. You know, as I read the policy, the way that it exists right now, if I were a community member or even as a board member, it appears to me that the language would not welcome, and I'm concerned about that word, welcome a community initiative to rename a school, where somebody in the community would come to us and say, you know, this is what the people at the school have talked about, a petition, however it would come about. I'm concerned that it would not happen because of this particular policy. This policy says that the board will express interest in renaming a school and then seek public input. So I guess I'm concerned about an unintended consequence of something like that. I understand the importance of some of us to go out to the community to seek their input when we rename a school. However, with this policy, it appears to me that we would not welcome the community initiative or the community initiate that change.
Ms. Reed?
I guess I looked at it a little bit differently. We actually have 3 schools that I know of that have been renamed elementary schools. We Hausman, and we renamed Allen, and also Powell, which used to be Sunset Hills.
Used to be
Thunderbird Hills.
Yeah.
And they were all named pretty much for principals that had been there a long time, and those nominations came from the school campus. They didn't come from the community. And then they came and gave, the request to the board. So this is kind of turning it a little bit. We get so many nominations already for elementary school names. We have a list of them very long. I don't know that we want to encourage a whole lot of other people to come forward to rename some of the existing schools, unless it comes from the campus itself, which I'm comfortable with, but I'm not comfortable with this.
Mr. Blunt?
Listening to both of you, I'm not sure where I stand now. But what I was going to say was, I guess I did differently. To me, it was just stating, if somebody for the community did submit, all we're really stating is, the board then can say, okay, we're going to advertise, and that one's already filled out potentially. Tell them here's the form to fill it out, and we see if that's followed, or others have other ideas. This is from just, if there's other ideas in the community or by the school and other things, then we also consider that as part of it. So to me, it gives a lot of flexibility because it doesn't give a timeline or anything else in that particular regard. I understand Katie's comment now, but to be honest, that's what I like. I like having. I think we need something there. To be honest, I really do think we need something. I'm fine with this wording. I think it gives us the flexibility.
Dr. Harrell?
Well, and I was just thinking, when someone wants to nominate a school name, they go to the website, right? The traditional, the typical way. And so this would, I saw it just a little different. This would be also part of that. It would say if you want to name an existing school, isn't that a form of getting the word out? It says request for renaming will first advertised. Is
Well,
that,
because it's not, we don't though, like if I want to come in and I want to rename Pat Neff, I just fill out one of those and then it comes to the board. So
Right. But
we
it
haven't,
would say
we
on
don't
the-
go to Pat Neff, we don't talk to the community, we don't,
right?
when, you know,
And really for high school naming, it's an 8th grade writing project. No, but I'm just thinking of the other ways we get names that aren't always we advertise or we go to the
oh,
community.
I'm sorry, I wasn't
So,
following what you were saying,
no.
Carol.
Well, it's
Um,
late. I'm not following it either. But I'm just thinking,
yeah.
there's other ways that we get names,
Well,
not
high
just
schools,
one way.
we reach out to the the 8th graders that are in the feeder patterns that will be going for
So
their,
I mean,
for their
there's an sundry of ways
nominations.
that we look at school namings, not just.
Well, the middle schools are all named for somebody that's been involved
Mhm.
as statewide.
In Texas, yeah, or superintendent.
I guess my concern is just, and I, after talking to my student, you know, I've supported the change to homes. Number one is I didn't want to vote against it, because I think it's a good idea and the curriculum's great. But I still am very concerned about us renaming a school without letting the community around it know. So I don't know if it's this wording, but I just think that we need to have something in there. And you know, I feel very comfortable, other than this situation with home, that if we were going to go out and decide to rename an elementary school, that this board would direct staff and we would want input from that community. But this board isn't the board that's always going to be here either. And I just think that we need to have something within our policy that says, and we can change this. I just would really ask the board for support in having something policy that says, before we rename a school, we will get community input of that school. And so however we want to say that.
From that local community?
From that community, Katie. Yeah, I mean, from that community. And that could include that we'll say, are there any other options out there? Or to me, it's just, if we are requested to rename us, we are considering doing it, because we have those situations where we get a request to rename something, say, we're not interested in doing it, and it doesn't go any further. So those situations. But if we have one that comes to us that we say, we are really considering making this change, then I think we need to have something in policy that says, before we rename an existing building, school, that we get community input. So, I mean, we could change it if, I just think that's the only thing. I just ask the board to support like that. Ms. Freeman.
Yeah, to go back, when I talked about community, I used the community meaning the entire campus and anybody else. I want us to be careful about going to if we think that we're going to rename a school, to seek input from the community. It can't just be from that. I don't know that it can be just from that campus, because there's so many things, especially our magnets. Other students go there, so I don't know how you defined. I think community is just whomever. I appreciate what you're saying over this wording here, because I still think this wording here, we're going to completely deter somebody or a campus from coming to us and say, I have an idea. I just don't want to, I'm concerned about doing that with this particular wording. And another comment that was made at our committee meeting was that, well, we could do whatever it is. If somebody comes to us with a change, we could either put it on the agenda or not put it on the agenda. So it's still a board decision. Yours goes a little bit further if we're deciding, and I can, perhaps maybe we need to look at the wording such as that. And then I think when we defined a school, I know that when we talked about, quite honestly, when we talked about business careers, I guess I just think of Holmes as Holmes High School. I guess I was thinking about that we were renaming more of a program instead of the entire school. I looked at it like that. I don't know if we talk about renaming an existing school, I don't want to have to define what a school is. But,
So, just in hearing the conversation, maybe I'll try to offer a suggestion. So, what I think I hear is a couple of things, and one is that we don't want to make it appear by the language that we're cutting off this board's in the community, perhaps suggesting a name change. At the same time, I hear we definitely want to have something that says we will approach the community before we consider a name change. So if those two things are accurate, if those two statements are accurate, then I think we can craft another sentence or two that gets at that says something to the effect of if a member of the school were to suggest a name change, the board will consider that name change, but will also approach the community for feedback regarding it or something along those lines. I don't want to commit to language at 10:45, but something along those lines that maybe gets at, because this conversation is a little different than the one we had in July or August when this first came up. Motivations are a little different. So if the board's comfortable with that, we could, and when Ray and Naomi just said tomorrow that we'll revise some language and perhaps come back for another first reading with some revised language. I don't think we have a timeline issue on this. Renaming schools is a very rare occurrence, so I think we got plenty of time to work on this.
Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, somebody had already said it, so I don't need to speak anymore. It's been too long.
Okay,
So, yeah.
all right. All right, so where we are on this then is that we're going to go ahead and this is first reading anyway,
Right.
so you're going to be bringing it back to us
So you'll
with
see it
some
again on.
redefined wording.
Yes, I think that's where we are.
Okay, future agenda items?
Yes, ma'am. In your blue folder, you do have a list of items. Just a reminder that the time of the year, November and December meetings come a little earlier in the month than they do in the other 10 months of the year. We try to engage the board, even though it is October, with the holidays approaching, dates will get away from us, and so we want to engage the board in a conversation around the Board Appreciation Month events, both the lunch meeting that we do here with former trustees and superintendents, as well as the evening meeting that this year will actually be hosted by Marshall High School, right, Ms. McGee? So in about the third document into your blue folder is a sheet with all of your initials on it. And what we've proposed is some dates for each of those events. So if you look at on the top half of that sheet, if you've got a calendar handy, your calendar handy, we're looking at the dates for dinner, the evening event, and we're looking at first choice of January 31st, Thursday, and second choice of the 24th.
Do you want us to tell or what?
Yes, ma'am. If you know, we'd be glad to.
24th.
Is preferable, you're saying, Dr. Arl?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm okay with either one, so.
Okay.
I'm going to be smelling like a pig.
Well, it is at Marshall.
I'll just say
On,
that is the first time in one of those events that has happened.
That isn't.
You have come with
Yeah, kind of odorous.
waste on your boots to at least one or two of those events,
I
as
have.
I recall.
That is very true, and I apologize to the table I sat with.
Life happens.
Because that's the Gerlach Hog Show, which I work. I'm responsible for it, the 24th. But I mean, we'll be done. I mean, I'll be done in time, but I may not be done in time
To run
to go home. So I'll change my boots.
Mr. San Miguel has agreed to sit at your table.
I will just changed my boots.
All right, any, you're good on either? You're better on 24th? You said 24th.
24th.
Joseph?
24th. Doesn't matter.
All right, I think we have it. Ms. Chumley will be sitting with Mr. San Miguel, and we will be doing the 24th.
Oh, no, Brian, I get to sit right by you.
No problem. I have been in that hog barn on many occasions. Many occasions.
That is true.
All right, if we can go to the bottom half of that page, now we're looking at dates earlier in generally for the luncheon. We're looking at the 18th, 25th, or the 11th for that. And that's a noontime event here.
I'm open.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good on.
Bobby, you got yours. Okay.
What about you, Bobby?
Good to go.
You're good on all of them? So which Friday do y'all want to do for lunch? You want to do it the 25th?
Do you have a problem?
18 preferred.
I mean, it's fine with me, but we can do it the 18th?
There you go.
18th, fine.
18th.
Then let's do the 18th. Okay.
All right, thank y'all for that.
Um,
You've also got, I'm sorry.
No, go
You've
ahead,
also
Brian,
got a number of invitations in your folder, and the most proximate one is to the Mora dedication, which is obviously next Monday. You've got several others in there as well out into December, including some specific to Veterans Day are in your folder as well.
Katie, I wanted to ask you, since you were on the board when they did Redix, right? Would you like to bring remarks from the board?
I'd be very honored
Okay.
to do that.
All right. So, Linda, I was going to ask you if you wanted to, because you were here when you were on the board when you opened it.
In
So,
case you all don't know what we used to
I'm
have,
sorry?
we used to have a room over at the original school where we now meet for the foundation.
All right, at NLC.
From there. The classroom, and it was dark, and it was,
see, I thought you would have some good history. So if you are
well, no,
comfortable with doing that.
in that same subdivision I did
Really?
before.
That's,
Okay, well, good. If you don't mind, if you would be, all right. Brian, did you have anything else?
no ma'am, that's
Okay,
all there
so
is.
then I've got one other thing. So particularly after our meeting with the editorial board, I think would be a good idea, because I think that the 8 of us are not, or 7 of us for sure, are not on the same page on what we talk about as a marketing campaign. I know we're talking about our concern about students that we're losing to charters. We've talked about doing a marketing campaign. I think that Brian has put in place a lot of different initiatives that we may not be aware of. And so all are willing, I think it'd be a good idea to have a mid-year board retreat. So if y'all could look at dates and see if we have something if we have a date that we can,
Ms.
we
Chum-
need to give at least a couple of weeks.
One idea would be, we could, Linda and I could come up with a list of dates that we could forward as options, unless you want to try to hammer it out tonight with all of us looking at our calendar.
Well, we did really good on the 2 dates in January. That's
Right.
surprising.
We had just already done the pre-work, though,
Yeah.
on those. Those had already been sanitized, so.
Well, can we look if we have anything the first 2 weeks of December? That would give you enough time,
We would.
right? Do we have anything the first 2 weeks of December that we all can agree on a date? The meeting is the 11th.
Yeah, we meet on the 11th.
The 4th is Oak Hills Terrace 50th anniversary, and the 3rd is the NEF meeting in recognition.
Yeah, The only night I would be open that week is the 6th, and it would have to start
What
after
day is the
5:30.
6th?
Thursday.
Thursday? So, and it's not, we're really not gonna have a long agenda, but we do need to have a discussion, and we need to give some guidance
The
to Brian
you know-
as to what we want to do with that, because that's one of our board requests with him, is that we do that.
What about looking at before the December 11th meeting?
So like, can everybody be here by 5 and don't set a finance committee meeting for that one?
No, we've already set one for January.
Not until January.
Until January, all right. Would 5 o'clock work? On the 11th to come?
I don't see
Okay.
why not.
So let's do that then. So that'll work? My goodness, that's an amazing feat that we all have got. Yeah, what else do we need to do for right now? Dr. Hurl, I'm sorry, did you have something? Executive session, okay.
We're ready to go to closed session.
All right, so, no, that's it. I think we're good to go then. And so, the Board of Trustees on October 23rd, beginning at 10:55, will convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Sections 551.072 and 55074. Hang on, Katie, on that. All right, so the Board of Trustees on October 21st, beginning at 11 p.m., will convene an open meeting. Is there any action to be taken on the following items? I need Joseph.
I'm making a motion to accept certain administrative appointments as discussed. Closed session.
It's been moved and seconded, Carol, that we accept administrative appointments as discussed in closed session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. We are now adjourned at 11:01.